You don't, you know, freaked out over the tornadoes. And she said, I gotta move someplace where there's not any tornadoes.
we'll start. New year, you know.
Yeah, new year, new content, huh?
That's right.
Well, Commissioner, I'm ready whenever you are.
As soon as you tell me we're rolling.
It's rolling.
Thanks, everybody. Was this
Yeah.
meeting advertised?
Just you.
It
That's
was.
all we need.
No one else is here. I'll have to be.
You're doing the pledge and the
Hey,
prayer.
I was gonna say, as long as you're up. Oh, do you wanted to lead us in the pledge here in a minute?
I can leave.
And to get rid of,
I'd love that, John. You got a cheesy grin on your face. You want to pray for us here in a minute?
I don't know if that's a pre-qualification, but yes, I'd be happy to.
Well, welcome to County Commission meeting. It's the first one of 2022. We're here. It's the I don't even know what day it is.
Tenth.
It's the
10th.
10th day of January. We're going to start out with a Pledge of Allegiance, so graciously volunteered by Jeff Richards. And then we'll follow that with an opening prayer by our clerk, John Whitaker.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to be gathered here this morning for County Commission meeting. We're grateful to live in this land. We pray that we might be good stewards here and that the meeting might go according to thy will, that everyone can speak with respect and that ideas can be exchanged properly. We pray that thou wilt bless Iron County. Please prosper our businesses and bless those, all the families that live here, and especially those that are suffering. We pray that thou wilt bless us as citizens to be able to lift our neighbors and to be able to lift up the hands that hang down. We pray that we can be good citizens. We pray that we can give of ourselves. Please help us to remember thee in our dealings, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right, we've got the minutes of our December 13th meeting. Is there any discussion? Questions?
I didn't find a thing wrong. It looked really good this time. I didn't even find a.
Good.
An and out of place? Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, would
I'll-
ask for approval or
Shall I
Yeah,
move
go ahead.
for-
You know what I'm trying to
approve
spit
the minutes
out.
for 12/13/2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Realize this is my last one I got to sign, Marilyn. Next time it's you.
No.
It's you digging through all these little tabs trying to figure out.
There's a lot of them this time, too. You can use that machine, Sam?
Maybe, we'll see.
Okay.
Sure if it's actively working or not.
If I missed one, John, I'll get it
I'll
later.
track you down.
Approval of claims for payment from December 13th, 2021 to January 10th, 2022.
I will make a motion to approve all claims as of December 13th, 2021 through January 10th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hey, John, I have a question about the claims
Yes.
after, but will you just, if I don't remember, will you remember me that I had a question?
Okay, yes. And just so the commissioners know, we actually had a grandma request for all of the claims of payment for thank you, for 4 years. And so Dan has honored that request. But there was a gentleman in Cedar that wanted to see the details.
I met with him on that, and
We're,
I think I think we're good.
Oh yeah, no, he was fine. He was just
Yeah, no, he had a couple of questions, and I explained a couple of procedural type things, and it was a good conversation. I guess the question was, is there a way, or is it appropriate, or even legal to post a summary of those for the public, or how does is it appropriate to have the public look at those pre-grandma request, or is that I don't know the legalities, or if it has to be a grandma request.
so
That was just a question.
much of that falls under, and I would actually defer to Dan on a lot of this, but much of that falls under the budgeting process that you go through, the warrants, and that was part of the discussion when we had our when Dan and the outside auditors wanted to include this, was we had approved warrants, and it's actually still there on the agenda.
Right.
But it had kind of been glossed over, and so they wanted to. That's why we now say approval for claim payment, specific dates. And as far as that goes, boy, that would be down to like whatever Dan. If we wanted to try and make a packet of approval of claims for payment specific to each meeting, and then have that publicly available, like we do the commission packet.
Right.
I mean that's. I presume it's possible. What we'd have to do is maybe shift those dates a little bit and have it be to a few days before the commission meeting, so that you could have a packet of claims for
Right.
payment.
Did this person want that?
Not necessarily. It was more of just a question if that was possible.
Yeah, it seemed a little impractical to me, and it's covered by the budgeting process.
Okay, and that was my question, was if it was, I mean, I knew that it was covered. And the other question was, so as long as there's something within a budget, they're able to spend that money on an individual item. I don't know. It was a long conversation.
So the question is, how far down that rabbit hole do you go? Like, if I, for the clerk's office, buy a package of highlighters, do we want to talk about that in a commission meeting?
Right.
I mean,
That's what I said. There,
have a lot
I mean,
of
it would
line
just
items.
take way too much.
But yet, for that same thing, every year I approach the commissioners and say, I need X amount of money for office supplies, and therefore me as the elected official or department head will spend that money as my best judgment according to our procurement policy. And then, I am held to account because I have to keep within the budget that the commission sets for me for that line item, right?
Yeah. That's basically the same conversation we had the other night. So let's not go down the rabbit hole
Okay.
right here, right now.
Sure.
So,
Okay. Anyway,
Yeah.
we did have that grammar question. I forgot that you'd spoken with him. So
yes. Okay.
The Simpsons, really?
Hey,
I'm kind of got more respect for you already.
I like it.
I like the way we're going. I like the way we're headed.
if I recall correctly, Mike Edwards started this presentation with a glorious proposition about the Constitution of the United States and how government is run by the people. Well,
You're going to start it with
You're-
I like it.
With
you can
torches.
tell that where I'm at on the spectrum here with Mike Edwards. That's all right. Okay. Commissioner Wood, let me ask you a question. Why do you think we have the Open Meetings Act?
So it's transparent for the people.
Transparency. It's written right into the statute. It says, the state, its agencies, and political subdivisions exist to aid in the conduct of people's business, and it's their intent that this body, along with all the other public bodies, take their actions openly and conduct deliberations openly. So transparency is the best way to put that. So what does the Open Meetings Act do? It gives us our guidance. It requires government to take the actions openly, gives our information for what we're required to do as far as posting notice, record making and record keeping, as well as process and participation. Obviously, this applies to us as the public body here today. That's why we're doing this training. The statute also writes into it that we have to have training on this. So that's why we get to do this. An administrative, advisory, or legislative body, we fall in with that, consists of 2 or more people, spends, distributes, or are supported by tax money, and have authority to make decisions or recommendations about public business. Some examples of this are like the city council, the commission, planning commission, board of adjustment, special districts. Doesn't necessarily to apply to a county manager if we had one of those, a chair, or a public body acting in an administrative role, political parties, community councils, and staff meetings. The big question is, what's considered a meeting? I know that all of you have been cognizant of this. You've raised this when we've been having we don't want to have a quorum. We don't want to have, what is a meeting, though? A meeting means the convening of a public body with a quorum, including a workshop or an executive session, whether the meeting is held in person or electronically. That's important. For the purpose of discussing, receiving comments, or acting upon a matter over which the public body has jurisdiction or advisory power. So it's broad intentionally. So when you consider a meeting, consider quorum, consider what activity is taking place there, regardless of whether or not it's remote or in person. The statute does say, well, meeting is broad, but we'll tell you what is not a meeting. A chance meeting, you know, Mike's eating at Del Taco and Marilyn wants to join in, okay? Like, that's
We're
not a
both there
meeting.
applying for a job on the graveyard
There is a
shift.
quorum, but that's not considered a meeting for purposes of the Open Meeting Act. A social meeting, you all get together at an event. Email and text, again, as long as decisions aren't being made, those are not considered a meeting for purposes of the Open Meeting Act. And then, of course, they have language regarding these responsibilities where no public funds are appropriated and meetings solely for administrative purposes. And you often have those types of meetings where you're called in to make those types of decisions. Attendance, you can meet by phone, computer, or other means, but the notice requirements are still going to apply if we have a meeting via web. Mr. Whitaker's a pro at all of this. Public have to have a means to attend or an anchor location, and must be adopted into existing rules or ordinances. Closed meetings for our senior commissioners. What are some reasons that we have closed meetings, closed sessions?
To discuss any imminent legal action or proposed real estate transactions,
Yeah, you got
things
it.
like that.
Those are the main ones that we see. But discussing individual character, professional competence, or physical mental health, personnel essentially can be a closed meeting. Strategy sessions to discuss collective bargaining. That's written into the statute. I'm not entirely sure what that means, collective bargaining sessions, but you know what? We can work on that. Security personnel, devices or systems, investigative proceedings regarding allegations of criminal misconduct, trade secrets, commercial information, and imminent litigation, as Mr. Blake said, along with strategy sessions to discuss purchase, exchange, lease, or sale of real property. Those can be qualifying reasons for your closed sessions. Are there any meetings that must be closed? And the answer is no for you. It's always a discretionary thing. Now, the statute does specifically say you shall close meetings, but it relates to like DCFS and other special bodies that specifically they are required to have closed meetings. Our county commission is not required to have a closed meeting. So anytime we do undertake to have a closed session, it's within your discretion. If you don't think it's going to be an issue, we can leave it open.
And typically on the agenda, I'll actually put this meeting may be closed for, and I'll actually put the subparagraph of that last slide showed all the different reasons, and there each is a different part of the code, and I'll just list that part of the code. If it's like, strategy session to discuss real estate, this part may be closed. And there have been times when the commissioners have chosen to not, like if the real estate transaction's kind of already figured out, there's no reason to go into closed session necessarily. So there's discretion there, and which is basically what you just said. But I try to write that in the agenda so that you have that discretion.
It's broad enough for us, right?
Yeah.
During these closed sessions, I love how Mr. Whitaker does a good job of keeping us all on point. We always have a quorum anyway, but the body has to hold the public meeting first before entering into the closed session, which we do, and then we disclose the vote, the reasons for holding the closed meeting, and the location of the closed meeting. What you can't do, and again, I appreciate Mr. Whitaker on this, we're not approving things back there. We're just discussing game planning. We're not interviewing a person to fill an elected position or taking final action unless it's judicial or quasi-judicial. And then final votes are out in the open. Notice requirements have to be posted at the business office of the entity where the meeting will be held, and it's got to be in at least one local paper. You have to also publish it to the Utah Public Notice website, and at least 24 hours prior to the meeting post, the agenda, the date, time, and place. All thanks to Mr. Whitaker and his office. I don't know that we've recently had an emergency meeting or anything like that. I know that sometimes that's necessary, but when we do have an emergency meeting where the commission has to meet and take action, we just have to give reasonable notice, that's possible, and then explain why we had these exigent circumstances requiring us to meet. When's the last time we had an emergency meeting?
2015.
Okay, so it's been a while.
It was, we had, there was some election stuff in Cedar Highlands that had to be, we were trying to get the final tally done, and there was a little bit of weirdness in the precincting. And yeah, it was over the Thanksgiving break. I don't know if you were on the commission then. Yeah. So it was, it wasn't awesome.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of meetings that weren't on Monday. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess those weren't
Yeah.
emergency.
And so, for example, and I visited with Commissioner Blake about this last week, the town halls that you're talking about having for the potential correctional facility, those will be not emergency meetings, but we'll call them special meetings, which I think, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I'm assuming that's where Sam's
I
going to
touch
touch
on
on
that
those
next
other
round,
ones
but-
that we
Yeah.
had.
And so on emergency meetings, it's the best notice practicable. And for special meetings, it's 24 hours, and now I am stealing your thunder.
No, that's okay. And we're doing the tag team here.
Oh, yeah.
Back and forth. I love it. Okay. As far as keeping a record during the closed meeting, you have to keep minutes. Written minutes are taken of open meetings, but a recording of open and closed meeting must also be kept. And then the closed meeting recording is confidential and can only be released upon a court order, with certain exceptions pertaining to personal executive sessions or security executive sessions. Instead of an affidavit is signed by the chair indicating that the purpose of the executive session was to discuss a personnel or security matter. But otherwise, the recordings are kept apart, and the closed ones generally stay closed. As far as keeping minutes, they have to include date, time, place, and then all the names of members present or absent. In addition, they include the matters proposed, discussed, or decided, names, and substance of information from individuals giving their speech, and then individual votes on each matter, any additional information requested. So I think that's why we have some review of the minutes too. You can add that additional information. And there are statutory requirements for when the minutes have to be open to the public. We indicate unapproved or pending is what the statute describes it. Pending unapproved written minutes shall be made available within 30 days. And then once they are approved, posted to the website within 3 days. The minutes released prior to final approval need to be identified as pending or unapproved. And then recordings are also made available within 3 days. As we talked about, closed meetings don't have minutes and recordings released to the public. And then site visits. Again, one of the things I'm thinking, how often do you guys do site visits where you walk out and then have a meeting? I'm not certain that that's very often at all. But they don't have to be recorded so long as you're not taking any action. So if you go out and see the fairgrounds during a meeting, it's different. Interesting question. What happens if you violate the Open Meetings Act? You could become a misdemeanor. It's a Class B if you intentionally violate. And then, of course, if there's a violation, the court can take action to void the action of the public body if it was done contrary to the Open Meetings Act. And you may have to pay court fees and costs. The most common violation of the Open Meetings Act is actually we go into closed meeting without members of the body voting first. I don't know that you guys really have very many violations of it, but it's common to forget, oh, we need to take a vote before we go back. But again, I feel like you all have been doing it long enough, and Mr. Whitaker is good at saying, oh, hey, you probably should make a motion before we go back. So.
And that's why in the minutes, not only do we need to take do the commissioners need to take a vote, but we actually insert an affidavit into the minutes when there's a closed session that the chair has to sign saying this was entered into properly.
So I've seen some bodies do a roll call vote to go into closed session. Is that required or not? 'Cause
The only thing that's required is a vote. So if it's not a formal motion and vote and you do a roll call vote, say, yep, we're going in, I think that should be sufficient, but we can always take
We
a
can
look at
certainly
that.
start doing that.
Well, I'm just, in Cedar City Council, I just know we always did a roll call, or they always say, oh, we got to do a roll call. You know?
For yeah,
For a
and I've
closed
noticed that a
session.
few times with those guys. Yeah,
I don't.
and it might be that there's just more members too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can usually tell if there's an A with the three individuals.
But it seems like it works well to follow your typical pattern of motion and vote, especially where that can be done readily and by memory. But like
And
I said,
say there was an A, but there were 2-1. I would probably, if I wasn't sure, I would ask for clarification. Oh, Commissioner Cousins voted nay. Okay, make a note. And that does get included in the affidavit on the minutes that the chair has to sign.
so belt and suspenders approach. Other common violations include conducting a closed meeting for reasons other than those allowed by the Act. I'm going to try and make sure that doesn't happen. Taking official or final action in a closed meeting. You got to wait till you get out here. And then failing to properly provide notice of a public meeting. And failing to provide adequate notice of a public meeting regarding descriptions of agenda items that don't meet the reasonable specificity requirements. So again, we're all looking to the clerk's office to make sure that, and again, John's really good at saying,
With my apologies, sometimes we take this a little too far. Reasonable specificity. So
But
that's why
I
sometimes you'll have
appreciate
an
it.
agenda item that's 17 lines long. You know.
and sometimes we get people up here that'll try to say, oh, I want to talk about this. And you say, well, we're not going to, you can say your comment, but we're not going to have any open discussion because we didn't notice it. So that's part of this. As far as enforcing the act, that's the county attorney general, or a private citizen in court. If there's a violation, there are timelines for when people can raise that issue. It's 90 days after the discovery of the violation, and then 30 days if it involves bonds, notes, or debt. So either between a month and 3 months to kind of raise that action if they want to take it to court. Okay. You are now trained. Again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think although we tease, it is a great refresher.
It is.
And you were, I don't want to disparage Mike in any way, but I think you were right on point.
Okay, it wasn't too long?
No, it was.
You may have won the record. I don't think you did it in 27 minutes before.
Let Mike know
It
that.
was way more colorful. Your graphics were way more colorful.
Well, just know that I have an abiding love for our country and our Constitution, and I know that all of you do too. But for purposes of training, the Open Meetings Act is pretty black and white, and you guys do a great job, and I appreciate Mr. Whitaker always. I feel like I rarely have to say anything because he knows when to speak up. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's. We don't have any.
There
any
is,
department.
So I'm sorry, I didn't
go
mean to
ahead.
cut you off, but there is, and I kind of left this on purpose because it's been a while, but I did leave a provision there. Departmental reports without specificity. So the commissioners, if y'all wanted to report, you could.
That's what I was gonna. That's
yeah.
what I was gonna say.
I cut
Is
you off.
we don't have any other department heads, but I think the commission can report. Is that acceptable,
Yes.
John? Now I'm paranoid. I'm gonna
That's
ask
reasonable
I'm
specificity.
gonna ask John every.
Thing.
Marilyn's gonna ask John. I don't care.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
So I had an interesting holidays. My father broke his hip, and we went through that whole process with him, and I lost my dad on New Year's Day. And I just wanted to tell everybody thank you for reaching out for condolences and that type of thing. He was 97, so he lived a wonderful, long life, and I am going to miss him. You cannot have a father for that long, and he was so wonderful. But I appreciated the commissioners come down and to the funeral. It was in Washington, and we had a military burial. It was beautiful. The military people did such a great job. Navy and Army, he was in both. Anyway, I just wanted to tell everyone thanks for reaching out and being so kind. That's kind of what I have done since the last commission meeting. So, thank you.
That was a beautiful service, and you did a wonderful job, Marilyn, on your remarks. So we had a meeting with Cedar City last week. We've had an agreement in regards to the maintenance of our flood channels. That last agreement was in 2005, and it was a little vague in some areas, and so we wanted to sit down with Cedar City and just firm up who's responsible for what. And we had a great meeting with our new mayor and staff, and I just, the basic changes is, in the past, the county has been responsible for the flood channels from the Woodbury Split north down that towards out on the north leg, and that carries 60% of the water. The Woodbury Splits takes 60% north and then 40% kind of southwest. And so we changed that. The county will now, the city harvest gravel right there just east of the tanker base station at the airport. If you go due east, they harvest a lot of that gravel in that area. They have for years. And we said, well, because you harvest the gravel and are working in there all the time, why don't you guys take that? So now we'll take basically from the UDOT bridge where it goes across the channel over the UDOT paint shop, actually up above that a little bit to that irrigation split. So we'll maintain from there north. However, in places like Gemini Meadows, the city will still go in there because Gemini Meadows is in the city, and they have some storm drains coming into that channel, and they know where they may go in there from time to time and maintain that. But the general maintenance will be taken care of by the county on that leg. The other change we made was the city used to take from the Woodbury Split going south to the Highway 56, and they will now go to Ladybug Nursery. So they'll go to Ladybug Nursery, and then the county will take it from Ladybug Nursery on out to Quichpa. And so, right after the floods, we spent considerable time cleaning all of these channels because it left a lot of sediment and debris in the channels. The one that we need to start working on right now is that section from the UDOT bridge down to the DeMille gravel pit right there on the corner. We cleaned up to there before, but I'll bet it's deposited 3 to 4 feet of material in that channel, and we need to get in there quickly and get that cleaned out because as the snow melt comes off, as it starts coming in February, March, April, that's going to get pretty high, so we need to get in there soon and get that cleaned out. And I did talk to the Water Conservancy District. That is really good gravel, good material, and they're in need of some of that material for some of the roads they use in the county for their purposes. And I talked to them. I don't know, and I just want to bring up to the other commissioners that I talked to Preston at the road department. He doesn't necessarily need that gravel, and I told Paul that we could probably, as long as we charge them for our use of our trucks, we could maybe haul some of that gravel to some of these roads for that. But that's one of the things I had to report.
Can I comment
sure.
a little bit about the flooding? One of the things that we came to mind with with this flooding is being able to get in to clean those ditches, trees, the width of them. They used to measure them. Well, we still do it at this time, but we're in the process in making a new ordinance to be able to make sure that we have enough room to get in there for a dump truck to be able to, so the buildings will be pulled back some on our new ordinance because that we realized that it's a huge problem, and our planner Reed is working on that now. And so be aware that'll be one of the upcoming things that we talk about is the width of those ditches and our new ordinance on that.
Yes, thanks for bringing that. I think it was 100 feet from the center of the channel to a structure, I think is what it was, and so that'll be good because we've got some situations like out by the college farm where there's been some houses and their block wall on the back is right to the edge of the channel, and it doesn't give us any room to work.
And that's Cedar City, and so we're hoping that Cedar City will adopt it also.
And they seemed very positive about
Yeah,
doing
they
that and
did.
about trying to enforce. We just need room to work and keep these channels maintained. So thanks for remembering that, Marilyn. The other thing, we've had a little bit of problem in the senior center. We brought it before. We've had a little bit of water seeping underneath the floor, and we finally it became. They tried sealing some things, and we finally just pulled the floor up, and there was quite a bit of water under it. It's leaking, I believe, on that northwest corner, and so I talked to the contractor, Carter Enterprises. They're going to go in and do some work, try to mitigate that and seal that up so we don't have those problems. So it's dried out now. We'll have they're going to pour a concrete cap that has a little more slope under those stairs and try to divert that water away and fix that problem. So
You give it stormwater?
yeah, just slow leak, or just through the foundation and down. So anyway, we thought it was another issue. We poured it full of concrete and it didn't solve it. So it must be that. It's got to, I mean, there's no other place that could really be coming. The other, just real quick, just want to remind everybody, we've got Representative Ken Ivory going to be in town on the 13th at the Festival Hall. He'll be doing a presentation about the 30 by 30 land grab that the federal government's considering. It's very serious. I think we've gotten the word out good, but we'd appreciate anybody spreading the word for that. It should be really good. He does a great job. He did a presentation down at the UAC conference in St. George. And so we will have that at 5 o'clock at the Festival Hall this Thursday. That's the 13th. So I think that's all I have.
Okay. Several things this week. Let's start with the jail. In the last commission meeting at the end of the year, we indicated that we were going to do a number of public meetings, informational type meetings to get to get the process out into the public, and so we can have some public input and we can keep everybody apprised kind of where we're headed. After the Water Conservancy District public information meeting that was so successful, we decided that would be a great format to have a jail meeting. I met with SUU on Thursday or Friday, and we've got the Great Hall scheduled for February 8th. With the same setup and everything that the Water Conservancy District had.
What time?
We've got it from 6 to 8.
6 to 8.
And prior to then, we'll kind of lock up the format and we'll get the particulars worked out.
So, in line with the training, so we'll probably I'll advertise that as a special meeting.
Yes.
And I would imagine you all won't want to take action, but we will just have an informational.
No, and what we're I think the format that we're going to have is a lot the same as the Water Conservancy District had. We're obviously going to have Dan present on a number of things. We'll probably have Reed talk about some things, the sheriff talk about some things, and then we've also, as part of that process on Thursday, Dan and I met with the sheriff as well as all of the chiefs of police in Iron County. just to get them caught up on the process where we were, as well as we move forward, we're going to move forward with the chiefs of police in the loop. They've got their stakeholders in the project, and their communities are stakeholders in the project as well, and they're a really good link back to their communities. But we're going to keep them in the loop.
As far as the location, I think we're considering several still.
Yes.
And I don't think that we're going to pin that down
No.
until we have some of this education, right?
Right.
6 o'clock?
It's scheduled. We're scheduled from we have the building from 6 to 8. I don't know the exact time. I don't know that it's going to be a 2-hour meeting. It might be 6:30.
30.
Something. We're not sure yet,
We
but
may
we'll
wanna
get that as soon as we figure that out. We'll get that blasted out here shortly.
We may want to give us nerdly folks a little bit of time to set up once we're in the building.
Yeah.
Well, and so you'll probably ask for questions up front.
Well, I think what we're going to do, we'll probably provide an email address for questions or comments. I don't know that we'll take any direct public comments or questions that night, just for interest
And
of
maybe take some at the there. They can write down and put in a box that we can take and answer
Yes.
for later.
Yes.
If it brings up more questions.
Absolutely.
That was a great format that the Water Conservancy.
Yeah, that was inspiring. And in fact, we walked out of that meeting and said, "This is perfect format for the jail." And so we're going to we're basically going to follow that format.
As far as that goes, we have an email that's kind of set up for that kind of thing already, and it's clerk.group@ironcounty.net.
Okay.
Great.
It's just the clerk group email. So clerk.group@ironcounty.net. So,
Okay.
Clerk.group@ironcounty.net.
And we'll get that published really well.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
as soon as you get that, if you can get it on Facebook so that we can all blast it out, I think that would be great. And maybe other
Yes.
in the paper or whatever.
We'll get it on social media. I've also reached out to. I think we're going to put it out as well as through some of the different community groups, some of the service organizations.
That's
We're going to get the word out as far and wide as we can. The Chamber of Commerce is going to help us push that out. Yeah.
I think that's
So,
going to be really beneficial.
So I went in. I spent a couple of hours in there Friday just trying to narrow down dates. Availability of space was the big thing. That was the facilities at SUU are in great demand, and we were able to. That was when she first started looking. She's like, I don't know if we can get this till March or April, and then it was kind of like, ooh, we've got February 8th, and I said, we'll take it, because the sooner the better.
That would be good.
So, so that was just solided up on Friday. This is going to be a weird time to bring this up, but fire prevention. Had a meeting with the Fire Chiefs Association on Wednesday. I don't know. Wednesday or Thursday last week. From here moving forward throughout the rest of the winter, we're projected to have higher than average moisture, which is fantastic, which converts into taller than normal grass in June and July when fire season starts. There's a program there's a new program from the state. Now I can't remember what it's called, but they kind of have redone their whole fire prevention program to try and make it a little more simple and catchy. And but that's something we're going to really encourage. Working with the sign department, excuse me, with our sign department in the county to get that new signage up once it comes, and also update the signage that we already have up in conjunction with the fire departments, and redo that logo, new logo stickers, everything, come into compliance with that program. The other thing that we talked about, and I think Ryan's going to come talk to us later in the day after lunch, just to catch us up on grant applications.
Yeah. So I had you read the wrong thing in the last meeting. So
Whoops.
sorry, Marilyn. Next meeting we get to do that
Get to
again.
redo
The
that.
big one. The big
Yes,
one was
the
wrong.
big one was
The one that I'm like, hey, John, I'm just making sure we're getting this right.
yeah, that one.
You messed up. I think maybe I'll have you read it.
Unfortunately, it says the chair.
There. Oh.
Oh, sorry. And anyway, I kind of bent their ear because it was their instructions were a little confusing. There's the notice, and then there's what you're supposed to read in the meeting. And anyway, I had Mike read the wrong one.
That's
So
fine.
sorry, Commissioner. Sorry, Commissioner.
Yeah. But
So that'll be
they're,
our next meeting.
Well, get
Yeah,
it to me
But
early.
the good thing is that the application, because this is for that pumper tender in Newcastle, or is it Burl?
it's Burl.
Yeah.
Burl.
And anyway, we're still going to be. The good thing is we were far enough ahead in the process because it has to be done. They have no flexibility on any of it. It has to be done by January 31st, and we'll have our meeting on January 24th.
Excellent. Yeah, that was, we were,
Well, excellent would have been getting it right the first time.
I know, but we talked pretty in depth about that process and
Yeah.
moving forward. There's a couple of other items too for equipment.
Yeah.
Just trying to mostly at this point we're really trying to focus on the West Desert and getting their equipment up to where it's functioning and can provide the protection that we need in that area for those folks. So just one other item as far as inland port moving forward. I met with Danny Stewart a couple of times this week just to make sure we're kind of in the paperwork shuffle with the port, but that is moving forward. It's not sitting on the shelf. It's up and running. So
I have quite a bit of family in Milford who are railroaders, and they're very excited and interested in the project. So I think we all should be.
Commissioner, that campaign's called Fire Sense
yes,
Fire sense.
Fire Sense.
and not CENTS.
George was at that meeting. George keeps us honest. Yeah, Fire Sense. It should be a good program. I talked with Mike Melton too. It's a statewide program, but Mike Melton and I talked about doing our own local, kind of our own local take on it as well to supplement it and augment it. So it's not going to be just reliant on the material that the state pumps out for us. We're going to try and kind of do some local,
Things
more
too.
local things as well in the individual communities. So
Signage and that type of
signage. We may even have local leaders do kind of little public service announcement type things. We're going to work through that, but we wanted to personalize it a little bit more to the county instead of just saying, "Oh, the
state.
state in all of its glory has blessed us with this program."
Well, we're very fortunate to have Ryan, and he doesn't let
Really
the
good.
grass grow. And
Right. So yeah, we're going to try and customize some of that as well to make sure, because I think, as a community, we get hit hard. We get hit as hard as anyone else with fire problems, the spring and summer. So
I have one more thing.
yes, sir.
So Marilyn gave Commissioner Wood gave Commissioner Blake and I a nice gift that was made by her father. Beautiful turnings.
Show them what it is.
It's a toothpick holder. See that? And these are turned on. He was quite a woodworker and lathe wood turner. The challenge is she wrapped these in glitter ribbon, and so I hope I don't have as much glitter on my face as Mike does.
Because I know
pretty glittery.
it's a constant.
It looks like he stole a package and the glitter bomb went off. And I think I've got.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The last time I remember there's much glitter on me was holding my little girls in church with their glitter dresses. But
So we have a no glitter rule at Christmas in my house.
You do?
And my daughter-in-law violated it this year just on one package that was for me because she thought that was funny. So that's fine.
sorry, I just had.
I
to-
No, I
like,
love
like
it.
to
That's
see
great.
glitter.
No, and yeah, my last comment
He's picking on him.
also, to Marilyn's dad's service, was awesome. I mean, it was just such a great tribute, and I've known Marilyn's family. I've known Marilyn's family a really long time, and I didn't know that was Marilyn's family. Marilyn's older brother Terry and I have worked together for years and years and years and been really close, and I didn't know they were siblings till it's been a while, but
Why we didn't cross path more, I have no idea. My brother did, but we
Yeah.
ran in kind of different circles, I guess.
yeah, but no, it was just such a great tribute, and I appreciate being able to be there. It was inspiring, really, and
Appreciated both of you.
And
coming
Commissioner
with their
Wood.
wives, all came.
spoke. I mean, it was just really good. It was such a great tribute for somebody that's accomplished so much and been just left the world a better place. It was very cool.
Yep.
So
I love the obituary where it said that Paul and your mom put great in the greatest generation, and that was true. And I was looking through some old papers I had the other day. I came to school in 1980 to SUSC, and Paul Peterson signed one of my certificates. I ran across that the other day. It was kind of fun. I took a picture and sent it to Marilyn.
I think his influence was very
very much.
widespread, so that's pretty
Yeah.
amazing
what a great
too.
man. So.
He was a great man.
So with that, we've got about 10 minutes till 10 o'clock. We'll take a break for that 10 minutes and come back and hit the 10 o'clock calendar running. I'm going to go write my name on Carrie's stuff because I'm afraid of her.
There's a manila envelope, a manila
Frank, how are you?
folder
Yeah.
that has your name on it. It's for the fairgrounds, for all of the title work that we have to
Oh,
do.
okay. Yeah.
So that's what that is. So just sign it.
So what we're going to do,
I'm,
so there was one thing
Individual map for each precinct.
early, like when we very first started talking, part of the proposal.
As long as we can read the streets, that's the important thing. I don't want to skim them twice if we can't read
One,
the
but
streets.
they wanted
Well, they
two.
can take him.
We'll take a look at it.
Be really happy with
visit with him and make sure
we
that
had
Two.
the streets are
And then
So did you?
available. I don't know that he was
Yeah,
there.
Dan.
I have to decide what you want with the GIS map.
Right.
Well, I
Yeah, I
think
mean, that was really like the
streets for the
first
boundaries.
talks, and then we never talked about it
Yes.
again. And then when it was all done,
Considering that,
all
I
done.
know, like, when they go out and do like the
Still getting a
I
truck.
came
I'm
up
like,
here
ooh.
basically to
dedication of the
Check that out.
which is
No, they all three were out there, but it
How am
was
I
just
gonna
a dedication film, so you know, it wasn't a public. I didn't have
It's
that.
just fun.
and my paper, pick it up and
That
pay
we're
for
gonna be read
But
up
if
to
they
the
had,
When
when
you pick it up, then I'm actually gonna have you,
obviously,
Talked about it again.
I'll
these guys
do
are,
it.
We talked about it.
they're transparent, they
I'll
are,
actually
you
do
know, I
the
can
work.
tell them that you
The
get
sheriff's name will flow, that doesn't really matter, it goes to the same.
Katie
ones
going
that
on.
they can use around
I'll
town.
have
Trying
you
to start.
call and I'll give you information.
And even when they tried to,
Yeah, yeah.
and first, that jail presentation, he was very adamant about, this is just a staff meeting.
Unless we can.
Engaging with the public right here, this is just for
and so if I
information, only
came
you're
back
welcome to
tomorrow
sit in, but
Don't even worry about it. No, Paul's
run
knows.
through the whole thing. Very clear, so, I didn't have to run it in, but later when the public meeting was held, I went,
I love it.
My daughter
got some of that background information in there, but
package. It was just
I think he handled that well. I mean, I think Paul was there too that night, I think.
It's not so bad when you're at
Yeah,
home.
I've not ever felt like anything.
I grabbed those.
Well, we already have,
I have those covered and I'm like, oh, those are
There's-
sweet. That'll
So
slide
there's
those out.
this map here.
Rightness and.
yeah, that's the
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Well,
Just
this is
Mary,
slightly
quit that.
different.
Don't buy
I
those
mean,
clear ones.
I use everything they give me, but at least I
Cute
have
on
access
them.
to it. I don't feel like anybody's trying to hide
one of
it.
those and
Anyway, I reminded you. I talked to him.
perfect.
Okay.
All right, John, and do you have any idea what the cost of
It is.
If it's 11 by 17, it's gonna be $1 a sheet. If they're the big ones, it'll be $5 a sheet.
It might have been.
Well, thanks for all you do, Sam. No, thanks.
Well, we'll try and do.
Watching on WebEx this week, there's some
They read
we
the,
did
they
talk
read the,
about it.
my,
sentencing
the chief.
that's coming up.
Fold it in half if you
I on a few of those. He dropped his,
I'll try and keep it on those ones.
change of plea, you know, I wonder what made him change his mind, but.
Mr. Frank, how are you?
You got all these railroad
They're officially declaring the election.
Not
day.
even under duress. About anyone important. They're all railroad guys. There's a caboose sitting out.
How many signatures do you need?
Railroad guy was gonna sell it.
They were
Nobody was sitting out there.
All of
And then it
all
went
my
over-
relatives are Gruts.
You registered voter?
Well, I think there was a grunt.
Oh.
Anyway, he was gonna acquire it and sell it to me.
I mean, I voted,
Well,
I voted for
I would
both
love
parties, I
to.
just not
Sitting right out
registered.
here.
Sorry.
It's sitting right at Iron Springs.
I guess.
And I can
Some of
use
my
it for an
libertarian
artifact.
friends the other day that they couldn't
Well,
sign
so
it.
I've got, I've actually
Somebody
got-
knows about that.
I've got a classmate who's kind of, he is a buckety buck in, where he lives.
Anyway, yeah, sorry, I purposely don't affiliate with either party,
I
just
can
so I
reach
can,
out to
you know,
them.
maintain.
But I mean,
And the same for you and for me and mine.
oh, they don't use computers.
Anyway,
It's sitting there, it's beautiful. And I-
thank you, yeah, good luck with your
Springs.
re-election, that's good.
The guy said, well, we'll
Excited,
sell it.
excited about
And then
running. I
they
mean,
took it to
not
Milford.
the election
And
part.
he
I
called
love
me and
serving,
said,
but I'm
well,
not excited
if
about
you
it.
want that thing, you gotta
Yeah,
come to Milford.
elections are the least favorite
I
part.
don't know when the hell I'm gonna get it. Then it comes back. It's still sitting, it's sitting out there for a month or two. And, anyway,
What's that,
yeah, we'd like to have it sitting right by the
slide
hotel.
presentation?
Yeah, this would be fun.
Yeah.
Torches.
Torches. That could be the headline of yours too, yeah.
Okay.
Re-elect Poe,
He owns
and string him up.
I've had more torches waved at me than you can, you know.
At the end of the day,
I finally, in city council, got to the point where I say, look,
somewhere.
just because your realtor lied to you when you bought that property and said it was gonna be an empty field your whole life, you should have bought it yourself and done what you wanted with it. But no, those people that pay taxes on it have a right to develop it. All right.
represent those people. And the price is lowered.
We're just trying to grow together, you know?
An associate
Well, and and I think that's a little bit
with me, and
frustrating
Ben
on Facebook.
analyzed everything, and he set the price for the
You gotta
property.
shut off growth, you gotta stop the growth.
Oh,
Issue building permits and
I
every one
figured
of
it's worth
them.
$14.
From California.
uh-huh.
And he's got it for
Really?
7. I'm his
You just came here.
co-broker with him.
So you wanna have your castle and then shut it all off for everybody else? Is that?
Or, you know, they are widening the underpass.
On the
I
north.
just moved here and it's all well and good, but nobody else can move in after me.
That's what Garth side of that is. He said the
Yeah, well.
definition of
Nichols
environmentalist is
Canyon
the
Road
guy
is
that's
Main
already got his
Yeah.
cabin on the mountain.
And anyway, widened the underpass, putting in a light,
Oh, it just
light
drives me
intersection.
I've gotta bite my
And
tongue.
that is the best piece of
How
property.
much, how many acres?
Well,
What date did they say for the jail thing?
that is the best piece of property.
6 to 8 weeks.
I heard the 6 to 8 part, I just missed, I knew it was early February, I can't remember the exact date, February 8th,
If
Hotel
you got
Market.
any ideas about if you can pull
Plan on that.
I see an anchor on the corner and
Did they issue you?
I think so.
Allow,
A couple items.
okay, so you, that's what Mike was saying.
I thought it burned.
Thank you very much.
And you were at the water meeting, that was a good, that was a good
That was a
forum,
great
where
venue.
people,
There's all kinds of
the questions,
Bring your A game every week.
I own a soda nerd.
the emotion.
Yeah, and I thought I could put that on one end.
Not that you're trying to-
You know, not, it doesn't only need.
It's just like the
Could
square
be,
feet
you
that's
could
coming
have,
out in here on the jail.
you know, your imagination.
Defecate in them and live in town.
Because, you know, Garth Green is gonna.
Yeah.
She was a little more
gonna
colorful.
So,
Go over 23.
I do.
It's like, are you
Oh,
serious?
yeah.
The best part.
And this
2400
That's
north?
the 2400 connection.
yeah, maybe we got all kinds of
Wow,
applause.
she was really, you know, in her fervor.
Okay, I've
any-
kinda already got a group of investors
Thank you.
put together.
Any other,
It's gonna continue, but she, as soon as the timer went
So
off.
you gotta give them credit for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were basically
$12.5
going off each other's applause, you know, they were, and I think they just wanted to be heard, you know, and
south end
they
of
had a
town,
bone to pick and they got it off their chest, but
all that sold for $20 a foot.
Oh, heck, and Dan's got it listed
This
for
is
$7.
$7.
Idiot decided this was a good idea.
just calm down. Or the guy that said,
Anyway.
this should be in an
Well,
industrial
you
zone.
got
Well,
like yours
guess
started.
what?
I didn't
It
think
is-
it-
it is
Guess
on
what, it's zoned
industrial.
for it.
All right,
Yeah, I'd
that's
like
a
to say-
sleeper, if there ever was
Oh,
one.
my good wishes. All right, well, thank you. And I'll see about that.
Oh, yeah.
The kids won't be able to look at
That's what I
sheep
told those
anymore.
people, I said, you can get worse than a correctional facility, that's quiet, that's clean, that's safe.
Of course, the I'm out. Too.
Oh, and that's why this meeting will help.
That's,
Get some of that
That's the biggest
misinformation
thing
out of the way, and get
gonna
it
happen.
straight from the horse's mouth with the
Oh, yeah.
sheriff and all
Well,
the
that'll
other
be-
top
that'll
law
be a
enforcement
big
people
thing.
talk about. what is needed and why and how it's gonna be.
As far as, I
And,
mean, all the alfalfa,
you know, again,
things like.
that's
I got the
the way it
alfalfa
makes
guy
sound,
to see where they-
why we need a jail this size, so that basically do it itself.
The minute the state.
I think more people will be open to the idea if it's not a super burden on the taxpayers.
So they've met with.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you, thank you.
Fair enough. We back?
Yes.
Great.
You said way back.
Oh, are we back?
Are we back?
All right. Welcome back to the 10 o'clock calendar. The first item on the agenda is the reorganization of commission assignments and appointment of the commission chair for 2022. On the appointment of commission chair for 2022, I would like to move that Commissioner Marilyn Wood become the chair of Bryan County Commission 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Duly noted.
Duly noted and outvoted. This is where you pick up your stuff and I pick up my stuff and we do the dance.
Okay. And I've dropped half my stuff. These all arranged differently.
Better move the placards too, because otherwise we'll.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Uh-oh. How do you do that?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Other user.
Oh, other user. Okay.
Yeah. Just log in. With yours. Stay logged into yours. I'm going to really do some damage.
Okay.
Jared will be in here screaming.
And it was slow enough. It might take a minute. It was very slow, but I guess we could get started. Is Vern and Janet Eldridge? They're not here. We probably should have called them.
I sent him a text asking,
Did you?
asking if he's coming. Let's, anyway, we can
Should we go ahead and
put that off. Should we
Yeah.
see
If they can make it.
yeah, let's do that again next time, and we'll see if we can get them here.
That'll be great.
They just are such wonderful people in our community. They live out on Iron Springs Road, and they clean that road weekly. And it's a beautiful thing because that's on the way to the garbage dump and, the landfill. And there's a lot of papers that fly out, and they clean that all up. And it's really a nice thing that they've done.
Yeah, they do awesome. Frank called me one day and said, "Hey, they're out here." And I was in a meeting. I ran out as soon as I got done, but they were done by the time I got out there. So I was gonna go out and tell them thank you. So this is great.
I'm still not logged in, so we'll see if it. Okay. We start out with ordinance 2022-1, and that'll be Reed. And I just want to say I've been along for the ride on this process. It's probably one of the most interesting things that I have gotten to do as a commissioner that I could have done, and any of the residents can do, is see the process that we go through for our ordinances and the great zoning commission, the planning commission that we have on board. They're such professional, great people. And I want to tell them thank you, and Reed, thank you for that process. This is the townhome, trying to help get a little bit more affordable housing, and we'll turn it over to Reed and let him talk about it.
Thank you, and good morning, Commission. I wanted to just do, as Marilyn started there, explaining where this ordinance came from. Most of 2021 has been spent in an attempt to try to look at the housing situation in Iron County and see what the county could do to try to help alleviate some of the burden associated with costs and housing right now. You're aware we adopted an affordable housing ordinance a couple of years ago, and that identified that we would take a look at some of our options for accessory dwelling units, guest houses, smaller lots, and options for trying to provide opportunities that developers can do more housing options. And so we started this year by doing an RV ordinance that allowed for placement of RVs in different locations throughout the county. We created a new ordinance called the R4K zone that created 4,000 square foot lot options in small park type developments. We renovated the ordinance for guest houses and where they could be located and how many there could be, and tied that in with accessory dwelling units. And we worked with the Water Conservancy District in creating a lighter burden for people to be able to have an accessory dwelling unit or a guest house below a certain 800 square foot or smaller, where they wouldn't have to have another water connection. So that made it more affordable, because if you need at another home and you need another water connection, that's a water right, around $10,000. A water connection's $5,500. A connection fee is $1,500, and pretty soon you're almost looking at $2,000 or $20,000 just for the connection of the water. And so we were able to do some things with the Water Conservancy District, and appreciate their work on that. And that ties well with the townhouses as well, because of the Conservancy District's approach to when we do these 4,000 square foot lots or townhomes. Instead of 1 acre foot per dwelling, now the water duty is 0.35 acre feet. So it makes it much better in terms of a developer trying to provide an opportunity for housing and some of those costs associated with these kind of things and the densities. And so this ordinance has kind of been in the works for some time. It is patterned after the things that we did in the R4K ordinance in terms of some of the setbacks and the requirements for park space and additional parking and open space and things like that. I just wanted to point out a few highlights in the ordinance. The ordinance provides townhome options in the R1/2 and the R4K zones. Only those zones as the higher density zones. It sets a standard to maximize the cluster size of a townhouse unit. In other words, that there can't be a subdivision that just has all townhouses in it. It's a component of mixed housing type. There can be a maximum of 25% of the base units that are established as part of a larger development, a minimum of 10 acres for development of townhouses or the R4K zone, and 5 acres in the R4K zone, and then the 10 acres in the R1/2 zone. So a fourth of those units lots could be townhouse lots, and within the cluster of townhouse lots there's a maximum set for that. The townhouses will be between 4 and 8 units per building, that they would be no duplexes or no more than 8 units in a building. Requires additional off-street parking, open space, and has a reduced setback. Depending on whether the parking is going to be part of the lot in the front or if it's rear loaded, those setbacks are reduced on the opposite end where the parking is. It does also require the creation of a homeowners association with a minimum of 30 people to be able to have a large enough base to take care of the development. And then the ordinance was approved by the Planning Commission at their December meeting after having worked on it most of 2021 and even prior to that in some of our discussions. I think it's probably the ordinance and discussion that's been on the Planning Commission agenda longer than any other, because it was a little more complicated and we were able to chip off some of these others as we talked about affordable housing. This is just, the ordinance has a table, this table in it, that talks about all of the standards in the R1/2 and the R4K zone that make it fairly easy to establish and determine what those requirements are. This is just an example, and I've got 3 examples here of how this could look in a development. So if with a 1/2 acre lot as a minimum lot size in a R1/2 subdivision, you could have 4 lots on there. Each lot has to be a minimum of 3,000 square feet for a townhouse lot. But someone could own the entire lot, and then their portion of the building that's on that lot could be configured something like this. It could be configured like this on a 1 acre lot for 8 dwelling units. And then you could also, these 2 first examples are where the lot of the townhouse takes up entirely the lot of the property. In this case, the lots are within a common area owned by either the homeowners association, where maybe they maintain and take care of that. So there are different options or different ways to do it. I think it can be fairly creative depending on the creativity of the developer and his ability to try to work through some of these options. We can't, of course, foresee every eventuality when we look at a new ordinance like this, but I had talked with planners in St. George and Washington County, or in Washington City, areas where they have a lot of these types of things, and tried to get a good feel for what some of the issues are and what they run into, and we've tried to accommodate that through this ordinance. So I think anytime we do an ordinance like this, we want to couch it in the opportunity for amendments as we go along to tweak. We recognize that it's not going to be perfect the first time, but it gives an opportunity to get it out there and give developers an opportunity to look at it, and then we can modify or tweak as we need to, as we've done with other ordinances. So that's an introduction to the ordinance and a brief overview. Unless you have any questions, I think we could go into the public hearing.
Chair calls for a public hearing on ordinance 2022-1. Any public comments? Brandon, state your name, please.
Brandon Hunter. First, I'd like to thank Reed for the hundreds and hundreds of hours he's spent on this, and tell him thank you for that. I just want to explain some of the motivation behind some of this. Is I have a son who's graduated with a master's, but due to the housing market, he will not be able to buy a home. He and his wife are just getting started in their stuff, and you can't buy a home for almost $400,000 as a starter home. So this adding townhomes to the county will allow them to be able to get into a townhome, make some equity, and then build up to getting their own home. So that's one of the reasons that I'm very grateful for this, as well as the ability to have more people in the county but not use as much water, as that's been a large concern of as a farmer, is my profession. The loss of water is a major concern, and this helps facilitate some of that. So I just wanted to say, especially to Reed, thank you for all his help with that. So thank you.
I just Maryland Wood, I think. Having a little trouble changing over computers. The chair declares if that's all the comments, the chair declares the public comment period over, and read.
This certainly is a departure, and we want to make note of that from what we have historically done in Iron County. We've never had, and prior to the accessory dwelling unit ordinance, where we allow for 2 dwellings in a single home if it's within the footprint of the building itself, then we've never had duplexes or multifamily housing of any kind in the county. I've been involved with county planning now for 22 years, and it's always been something that was always said, that's for the cities. We're not going to do that in the unincorporated area. That's not what the county is. And so it's taken a fair amount of time to think through and get everybody on board philosophically in terms of our ability to take a look at multifamily housing and what that can do in terms of not just affordability, but transportation and infrastructure, better utilization of the opportunities that we have currently. And so recognizing that we now have, we may not have, we didn't have 20 years ago or 25 years ago, central water out in the unincorporated area, central sewer out in the unincorporated area. We didn't have the opportunities that we have now because of our interlocal agreements with the municipalities that allow us to connect to sewer, and to have the Water Conservancy District in Cedar Valley especially spreading and taking care of a lot of those water systems and developing their water system out, that it makes it better to be able to provide because housing density of this type really does need to be, where there's good transportation corridors that recognize we don't have public transportation out in these areas, but because of the development of water and sewer and more central services and good transportation utility corridors, that does now provide an opportunity to do this, especially as we're getting in some of those interface areas with the municipalities, where there's an option that makes it more desirable when those properties are developed in the unincorporated area, that they could be incorporated when there's time to do that, because of the similar type infrastructure and development types that will make it easier. We've struggled, throughout the years in trying to accommodate municipality growth when we have a subdivision of unincorporated area that the cities don't want to annex and try to annex around it and create islands and peninsulas because there are subdivisions that don't meet the county or the city's standard. And so this, I think, will help in that transition as well, and providing those opportunities for more similar developments that could be incorporated as growth occurs for the city when it's appropriate for it to occur in the county. So I think there are a lot of good things that can come from this, and as a result of taking the time that we have to try to make this work. So I think that's all I had, unless there are any questions or discussion.
I just echo what Brandon said. Our kids nowadays, with the cost of housing, they can't go from 0 to 400,000. They've got to have a step between to build equity and move up. And I appreciate the efforts that you've made, Reed, and our county's approved thus far to help with that. And
yeah, I think it's a lot of pieces now that we've got, not just this one, but with the smaller lot zoning and guest houses in town, or accessory dwelling units, and all of them, I think, will be beneficial.
And I don't remember.
Thank you for your support and the County Planning Commission support in trying to move these ideas forward.
I just texted Councilman Melling. I know he's ran the numbers on water use with the apartments that have been built in Cedar City, the student housing, compared to a home, and it's drastically less. And a lot of people maybe think that these students shower all day and they use a lot of water. They really don't. They use very little water, and so this is a way to provide affordable housing and reduce our water use greatly without having the yards and things. So.
The Water Conservancy District has done a good analysis and gotten information from Cedar City, Parowan, where they have higher densities and smaller lots, and compared those on actual usage. And that's what provoked them to change their structure and their duty requirements for smaller homes and smaller lots.
Right. I just texted. In fact, he just sent this, but I just said, how much water does a townhouse use compared to a house? He said, evidence tends to show single-family homes use 0.91 acre-feet a year, and townhomes are closer to 0.25, including common areas, so almost 3.5 times as much. So it's drastic.
This will be a good step in the affordable direction.
Yeah, really good. The other thing, working through this process that I was happy about that the commission approved was they decided to only go 2-story because we're 2-story out in the county anyway, but to make another 3-story out in the middle of the county where it's kind of a flat place a lot of times, I felt like that was beneficial. They were afraid, that you could look down in others' backyards and that type of thing. And so I think that was a really good step that they took. I was happy about that, so.
So the height, maximum height is the same as for a residence. It's
Yep.
30 feet or 2 stories. So
Yep.
that was same for townhomes.
It's been a great process. I actually had a lady approach me on Friday while I was at the university working through the scheduling, which now that you're here, we need to talk about we've got a jail meeting. We were able to get a schedule on Friday, so we'll get you in that loop. But, she says, what are we going to do? It was the same story. She says, I've got a son that's married, just graduated from college. They want to move back here. They've got jobs here. They actually put money down on a home, and then because he graduated from college, he went to salary at his job. Because he went to salary, he wasn't eligible anymore for the insurance package that he had, and his new insurance package is going to cost him almost $800 a month through the company. Therefore, now they couldn't afford their home anymore because because of their better lot in life. So, it's just such a need. I was really happy to tell her these are the things that the county's done to address that and to address that in the future. It's not something that, it's something that we're on top of. It was great to be able to say we've got a great planning department that's on it and we're working on it. So that was cool to be able to say, hey, we know we're on it.
We're on it. Yep.
So,
Yeah. It was a good process. Chair calls for a motion.
Okay, I'll go ahead and move to approve this ordinance of Iron County, Utah, adopting and modifying section 17.16.030, table of uses, and section 17.16.040, table of site development standards, and then section 17.36.500, townhouse standards, section 17.20.010, use definitions, and section 17.84.010, definitions, and providing for an effective date.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. That's number 3. Move on to number 4, which is ordinance 2022-2, and this is on the CAFO, the
Concentrated
Large Concentrated Animal Feeding Operation Act. And Reed.
Thank you, Commission. This is a result of Senate Bill 130 that was passed last year in the 2021 legislative session that requires, just for part here, this is the introduction of the bill. You can say it requires an adoption of county large concentrated feeding animal operations and land use ordinances, and addressing scope of county large concentrated animal feeding operations and use ordinance, and determining the geographic area where large concentrated animal operations may be located. That's essentially what this ordinance requires. So as you go through some of the language in this ordinance, or this Senate bill, it talks here in section 1727A 1103 that the legislative body of a county desiring to restrict siting of large concentrating feeding animal operations shall adopt a large concentrating feeding animal operation land use ordinance in accordance with this part no later than February 1st, 2022. And so as we've evaluated our own ordinance, section 17, chapter 17.30 of the Iron County Code that we've had in place since 2001, we've tried to evaluate how our ordinance currently is in compliance and takes care of some of the requirements of the Senate bill, in addition to what may still be lacking. And so as a part of the bill, this is the main provision in the bill that we did not have in our current ordinance, stating, after considering the factors described in section above, the county shall designate the geographic area where large concentrating feeding operations may be located, or may locate as required in the previous section, and prepare a map available to the public showing the geographic area of the county. That's the provision that we did not have. We had avoided, specifically tried not to have a map when we did our ordinances previously. and have modified over the years by designating separation distances and setbacks depending on primarily the size of the operation as well as the type of operation. We had two primary categories in our ordinance that has served well for 22 years almost, that has separated swine and then all other animals, but then it has a category for the number of animals in each of the categories in terms of the setbacks. So as we mapped that out in trying to evaluate that, this is kind of what it looked like for all other animals. So we took the county and said if we had the minimum and the maximum separation for other animals other than swine, this is what the setbacks would look like. As separated and set back from the considerations that were identified by state law, which were public gathering places, federal monuments and special places, recreation facilities, hospitals, educational facilities, and the things that were listed in state law, which we had already had listed in our county ordinances in terms of public gathering places. So we had a minimum of a half a mile separation and a maximum of 3 miles for the largest concentrated feeding animal operation that was non-swine. So we took a look at that map and said, okay, how does this look on the ground in terms of what our separations are? And then we did the same thing for swine operation and just put swine on top of it for the maximum, which is the 8 miles. And then we did a map, and I'll just interrupt myself and thank Kendall Allen for his work, the GIS guy, to help us work through these. He's been really good, and we appreciate working with him. But this is what the map looked like for just the swine operations for the minimum up to the maximum. And so what we just kind of overlaid some of the other maps, and this is what we came up with in the end, was that we would identify the area in the middle up at the top as saying this is our area of intent, or what we're actually calling the Senate Bill 130 area of intent for large concentrated animal feeding operations, because we already have an ordinance that identifies where they can go otherwise. And so we did not want to say, which I think a lot of the counties are struggling with right now, saying we're going to put on a map that this is the only place they can go, or this is where they can be located. We don't want to confuse this with what we currently have in the ordinance, which says they can go wherever they meet the criteria. And so the maximum pig or other animal is the kind of grayed out area based on our ordinance 17.3. And then we are saying that we recognize that in this area, in the black in the middle and the top of the county, here's 113,000 acres of land that we are designating as an area of intent that still has to meet the criteria of the ordinance, but we're mapping it. We have other areas that a large concentrated animal feeding operation can be located. I'll just say CAFO from now on,
CAFO.
since we know what we're talking about. By definition of state law is 1,000 animal units. We have much more definition and more categories than that, than just 1,000 animal units. As they get larger than that, we have larger setbacks. And so this is where we are saying is the area of intent to satisfy the requirements of the ordinance where they could be located in that area. But there are other areas in the county that they can also be located depending on what size they are, and as long as they meet the ordinance 1730. So as we prescribed in the ordinance, let me let's go back here just a couple of to language in the ordinance. If we can just take a minute and look at the general provisions, that the purpose of the ordinance and what it explains at the beginning of the ordinance is that we are simply adopting a map that designates an area where they could be located, but it's not the only area where they can be located. And it just explains that a lot of the other provisions in this, the requirements of like the establishment of an application requirement, procedure, fees, additional requirements, and administrative remedies are things that the ordinance or the state law specifically require that we're calling out are currently being satisfied by our current ordinance in Title 17 in the zoning ordinance. It has all of the provisions for appeals and applications and all of the other things that are there that we didn't feel needed to be duplicated because they were already provided. So that's essentially the nuts and bolts of the ordinance and why we're here. Any questions before public hearing?
Chair declares public hearing open on ordinance 2022-2. Any comments? Be sure to state your name.
Scott Stubbs, Iron County Farm Bureau. My question, when you drew that little black box, how many private acres are in that?
7,000.
Or private? Okay.
Yeah, let me just bother you a second here, Scott, and I'll tell you real quick. I had it written on this page right here. 64,000. Between Sitla and private, there's 117,000 square miles. It's about 75,000 square
Miles of private.
acres, which equate to 117,000 square miles, or 117 square miles. And that's the breakdown of that 113.
So on the maps with the circles, that was our original setbacks? We had a pretty good ordinance tonight.
Yeah, we had a good
That's
ordinance.
still in place.
Yeah.
It's just is how much acreage there is in that particular area, but they can still be located
Yeah,
in those.
and I understand that. Thank you.
Yep.
My name's Bill Pressgrove. My question is, we've got 2 CAFOs in the county right now that are not labeled CAFOs because they're dairy operations, but they still have, you still have to feed them, and they fit the CAFO, criteria because of the feeding operations and stuff like that. Are they going to be considered part of this?
Yeah, we could address
The way
that.
I read it is those are grandfathered in, right, Reed? And
That's
they
correct.
will operate according to the old.
Yes, there is a provision, I was just gonna write here, existing operations. Any animal operation of CAFO permitted or authorized by Iron County prior to the adoption of this ordinance, which has been maintained and operated continuously since its establishment, may continue to operate under the regulation of the pre-existing non-conforming use. So whatever was there can continue to
Okay.
operate
I understand
as
that.
they were, but they are also CAFOs by definition of the new state law if they have more than 1,000 animal units.
Yeah. The other question is, have we rezoned the area for the Dutch Boy dairy to fit the intensive ag, as is the one over in by Newcastle?
We have not rezoned that property because at the time that property was developed and the dairy was developed, it wasn't allowed use in the A20 zone. So if we were to do, we could proactively go out and do that, but it was a pre-existing non-conforming use in the A20 zone, and so it continues to operate just like many others. And the 2 are not the only CAFOs we have in the county. We have a number of pig CAFOs in the north end of the county, and we have other CAFOs that are non-dairy but feeding stockyards and feeding operations.
Okay.
So
Will
there
they-
are a number of those.
Will they then be rezoned as intensive ag?
That would be depending on whether the commission determined whether they felt that that was something that we needed to do. But, yes, we could, but it's not necessary for them to continue to operate.
I suggest we be proactive and do that.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'm Craig Lobb, kind of represent myself, I guess. But Reed and I went at this 2 or 3 years ago, was part of writing the first ordinance, and I think we did a good job on it. As I stand here and listen to this, and I should have thought about this earlier, you drive by Bob's Dairy out there and what he's done to the people in Newcastle, and you drive by the Dutch Cowboy Dairy and I've lived drive by both of them,
yeah.
and there's a whole different deal. What shut down the hogs in Iron County was the way they had their manure handling system, and the way the Dutch Cowboy handles it compared to the way Bob handles it. There's a whole difference in the smell, and I'm just asking the question. Maybe we should consider. The problem is the manure handling systems on all these CAFOs. Maybe we should consider how to do it so we don't have another deal what Bob's done to the people in Newcastle. I mean, I drive down 56 all the time, and when he's in the summer when he's spraying that water out on the fields,
I know.
I've been by there that much, but it's bad.
Yeah.
You drive by Dutch Cowboy Dairy anytime. I've hauled manure from their manure pits for years. It's not bad at all. So that's something we need to consider, I think.
Yeah, that's something we should talk about. Any more comments? Claire declares the public hearing closed, and we'll give it back to Reed.
Believe that unless you have other discussion or other questions, we would want to just move forward. And we do have the flexibility of this to, delay if there was something that you needed to investigate. It needs to be in place by February 1st, so we have another meeting before that. But I think we're ready to move forward, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval the way we've addressed it.
And on the CAFO for the swine, they are covered lagoons, right?
The requirement in our ordinance as it exists currently is that they're alternate systems to an open air anaerobic lagoon system. So we're not specifying what kind they have to be.
They just can't be open.
They just can't be open air anaerobic lagoons. They
Yeah.
could have digesters, or they could have covers, or they could have a number of different types of ways to address that. Correct.
Okay. Any more discussion? Call for a motion.
All right. Excuse me. I'd move for approval of ordinance 2022-2. The ordinance of Iron County, Utah adopting and or modifying chapter 17.30 of the livestock regulations for compliance within Senate Bill 130 UCA 17-27A-1101, Large Concentrated Animal Feeding Operations Act, creating a map and providing for an effective date.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, Reed. We'll have our public comment period now. 3-minute time limit for speakers for public comment. Participants should not repeat others' comments. Only for items not on the agenda. No items related to the Commission's role as a appeals board. Comments should be directed to the Commission. No attacks on others' character. In other words, be nice.
Well said.
Seeing none, we'll move on. Okay. Number 6, discussion regarding possible Iron County control of floodwaters in Paraguna to keep it off private grounds.
So I got a
Ralph
text
Lewis.
from my deputy, Chanel,
Okay.
and she said Ralph was going to be coming, but he's going to be.
Ralph's right there.
Oh, sorry. You're here.
Come on up. State your name.
Ralph Lister, resident of, I guess, the county over there next to Paraguna. It's 700 North Main Street. We built our home and moved into it in 1984. First of all, I probably should say thanks to Commissioner Cousins for coming and meeting with Don and I and seeing firsthand what's going on. He's been working on the flood control there for some time now, I guess. And anyway, when we built our home, there was no floods. We didn't have to have flood insurance in our area. The floods that came down went through Paraguna. I'm not saying that's an ideal situation, but that's where they went. And due to some changes that Paraguna made, they diverted the water to the north above town, and it started coming our way, and it seemed like those that screamed the loudest got the most attention. And it's eventually made its way over to 700 north and about 800 east, and then it comes down Little Creek Road, the 700 North Road. And last year, when it was flooding, I went up the road to get some bales of hay like I've always done to help keep it out of our yard, and the water was running down the road that was probably 2+ feet deep. And we couldn't get back with the bales of hay. The flood went through our yard and stuff. Several years ago when we built there, like I say, we didn't have any flooding in the yard or anything like that because it went down through town. And so when the flood started coming that way, we built a retaining wall to keep the floods out. Last year it was within 2 to 3 inches of going over that retaining wall. And this last year, the county has dug deeper and broader flood channels, diverting it over to 700 north. I'd just like to know what the county is going to do to keep it out of our home and yard, and then further to the north, the water. Let me restate that the state went in and raised the road, hoping to solve the problem. It didn't. It ran over the road clear along. All those fields north of my home had flood water going down through it. The last 2 years, I haven't been able to harvest my ground out to the north because of flooding. And it goes there in ponds, and we just need to have it taken care of. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you. I'd like Paul to address it. He's kind of been working on that area. And
so I've looked at, we did make some changes recently up on Ted Cook's property, right behind the new home, the retired Abbott's.
Danny Abbott.
Yeah, Danny Abbott. So instead of the 290s right there, we took those 290s out and went across Ted's property. He gave us permission. So it really doesn't increase the flow. It just makes it maneuver that little section so it doesn't increase any more water. That in talking to some of the old timers over in this valley, and those that are here could maybe chime in if they want, but they said that was the largest storm they've ever seen in their life. And so sometimes God gives us a lot of rain. And,
and it's not the commission's fault.
My experience is whenever it has rained and big storms, there's always a bigger one behind it.
Right. Yep. But we're, I'm going to, I was going to bring our engineer the night I met with you and Donna. He wasn't feeling well, so I still need to get him over here and talk about. We've talked about it before, but the challenge is making that, turning the water there at 700 and going north. And the unfortunate part is in that borrow pit, there's a high pressure gas line that's only about a foot deep.
Yeah.
And it actually floated at 1 year, I guess.
Yep,
and
it did.
And so that's the challenge, is trying to keep that water on the east side of the highway going north until it can go out out towards Donnie Roberts' place out that way. But we're going to have Curtis DeMille get over here with the machinery and clean a lot of those channels out, berm that up around the corner to divert that further north. We're going to do some work, and we're aware of it, so we're working through that.
Okay. And all I have to say is please maintain it. In the past, you come and do some work and then don't maintain it until the next flood and it overflows its bank again. And
right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on number 7. Discussion and possible approval of letter supporting the application for a proposed charter school entity entitled American Preparatory Academy.
Marilyn, I'd like to comment on
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Scott Stubbs. I'd like to echo what Ralph's saying. You know, we've had this water diverted around over here in Parowan Valley also, and we've took a lot of damage from it and everything. And we're getting water down through my farm where it never ran. You've diverted Parowan Canyon through my place, and it never came down there. Same as Ralph. My grandma and grandpa, it might not have been the biggest rain, but their basement was flooded in Paraguna because the ditches used to handle all the water and it run through town and everything. Well, I understand we can't have that.
Everybody used
But when
it.
you run it out and through these guys' crops and everything, is it really fair to us that, because we didn't buy where that came, we didn't build where that came, and so I just want to second what Ralph said there.
We understand that, and as we all know, the irrigation has changed so much with people not. I mean, it goes through pivots now that it and went down through town and watered, and people just don't use it like they used to. That's part of the problem, and I understand your frustration totally, and we're working on it.
I appreciate you've done a lot of work down my way.
Yep.
But there's still, you've got to recognize that we're still getting damaged from it. So thank you.
I understand that. Sorry I moved on without. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. We'll go to number 7 then. The American Preparatory Academy, and I believe that Casey Anderson is here to address that.
Hi, thank you, Commission, for taking the time out of your day to talk about this. I'll give you a quick summary, and then if you have any questions, that'd be great. American Preparatory Academy is the largest charter school here in the state of Utah. They have, I believe, 6 campuses, primarily up on the Wasatch Front, but they are looking at expanding here to Iron County because of our growth. So they feel like there's an opportunity to serve the students and parents of Iron County. I had a friend that actually reached out to me who wanted to help through that process. And the local school board here has already passed a similar letter of support. We also had Mayor Miley Wilson a few months ago also sign into a letter of support of expansion. So we just felt like it'd be great to have the county commission on board too. The process is they're submitting their application for expansion approval this week to the state charter school board, and we just want to show as much local support as possible. So that's a quick summary.
I talked to Casey about this yesterday, and they presented at the school board, Iron County School Board, and somebody got up and said there was an issue and they were concerned about, and Casey explained that to me, and I think it would be good for you to explain that process that they had a little trouble with, which makes total sense to me. But
yeah, it's a highly technical budgeting issue, but the state government provides more funding available for special needs students. And when teachers' aides are hired using that funding, that teacher's aide, 100% of their time is supposed to be used in order to support that special needs student. The model that American Preparatory Academy uses in order to help with special needs students is actually they try to include them in the general population of the school. So what that meant is that the special needs students were in the same classes as everybody else, and the teacher's aide was in that same class as everybody else. With larger schools, they have enough of these special needs students where they can have a separate class. So it's much easier to separate that budgeting and the accounting. So anyways, this was just an audit finding that had come up previously. They're fully in compliance. Basically, what they're doing is now they're taking a hit because I believe they're no longer even using that funding mechanism in order to support those teachers' aides. So they're actually using teachers' aides for special needs students at a reduced funding in order to not create a compliance issue with that. So because of that, they're in the process of paying back some of those funds.
And that, to me, that makes sense. Like we had a special needs child, and I felt that it was very advantageous to put those in the regular class with the other kids. I thought it was good for the other kids to be around those kids, and unless they were a disruption, I think that was really a good thing. But any other comments or discussion about that?
No, not for me.
Oh, right here. Only.
Just a personal, Volney Moran, just a personal anecdote. I went to high school in Hollywood, California. One of my classmates was John Ritter, a very well-known actor. He had a brother named Tom, and Tom was actually in my class. John was a little bit younger, but Tom was had cerebral palsy and could barely walk, and he was, of course, eligible for special needs education, but he wanted to be a regular student as much as possible. So he attended Hollywood High School, and Tom and I became friends, and it was really a great win-win situation for all the students to taste life in its reality. And it was good for Tom because he learned coping mechanisms that he would not learn in a sheltered situation. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Just one more quick note. The initial application for expansion, they're looking at, I think it's K through 8. It might be 1 through 8. They're anticipated to have about 600 students. The waiting list for AP up north is thousands of students. So.
Do you want to talk just a little more about the curriculum? I mean, what they really focus on in that school?
Yeah, so good question. The state has minimum standards that every school has to meet, including charter schools. But really, as far as the curriculum goes, it's pretty open as to what different schools can choose to go with. So American Preparatory Academy kind of has a foundational principle that they want to help study the history of our country. It's kind of more classical liberalism, for lack of a better term, as far as some of the principles that our country was founded upon. So they're very strong on history, the founding fathers and those sorts of things, and that's something that they find has helped the academic performance of their students to have kind of a guiding principle with which to develop their curriculum. So that's what they use, but they follow the same core standards that every other school in the state of Utah has.
Very good. Can I
Thank
call
you.
for a motion?
Is it my turn?
I think
It's Paul's turn.
Paul's turn.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I will move to approve the letter supporting the application for a proposed charter school entitled American Preparatory Academy within Iron County.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll go to number 8, discussion and possible update of 2022 per diem and mileage rate. Dan Jessen.
Commissioners, Commissioner Woods, congratulations on your promotion. So this is a standard thing that we relook at the mileage reimbursement rates and per diem for the year. Unfortunately, and we use a formula. We look at this, what the state of Utah, they spend a lot of time putting in with their accountants and actuaries on coming up with a meal per diem rate, which we usually copy. They have not yet updated their per diem rate. I was hoping they would by the time that this came, and they haven't. And I'm sure they're going to update it. We looked at the federal one, and it was updated, and it went up quite a bit. As you know, with inflation, we're seeing a lot of impact there. The state hasn't. So I don't know if you guys want to set that one, if you want to say we'll copy the state rate when it changes, and then I'll send something to you or whatever. I was hoping to have it by today, and it just hasn't. They just haven't changed anything there. So not sure what you want to do about that. As far as the mileage rates, the IRS mileage rate, which is what we have typically copied, has gone up 2.5 cents. In 2020, it actually went down, and now it's bounced up because it was based on gas prices that had come down. Now it's gone up to 58.5 cents. And we've typically adopted two rates. We've adopted a rate for mileage reimbursement if an employee does not have access to a county vehicle. And we've adopted a secondary rate that is a rate that if they have access to a county vehicle but choose to still drive their own vehicle with their supervisor's permission, then we have had a rate, and up to this point it's been 15 cents a mile less than whatever the standard rate is. With our new fleet manager, Wade and I sat down and we actually put pen to paper because we needed to figure out what the cost of using a pooled vehicle was, an internal county cost, because we're going to start charging the departments that use pooled vehicles a mileage rate, which the pooled vehicles will be owned and operated, if you will, by the fleet department. And then if any departments use them, we need to charge each department. And so that's just our new plan. So anyways, we sat down. We'll have better, more accurate information that we'll tweak that rate every year. But we've calculated it would cost about 25 cents a mile to drive one of the pooled vehicles. That includes fuel and wear and tear. That's with our high turnover plan. Our actual cost of the vehicle is almost nothing, but we do have mileage, we have wear and tear, we have oil changes, and we have some labor and things like that, all calculated into that 25 cents. What I'm getting at is this. I think that would be the most appropriate rate to reimburse an employee if they have a vehicle available and choose not to. Their supervisor approves it. I think we should only reimburse them what it actually costs us to run a pooled vehicle, because that's what we have to offer. Is here's a pooled vehicle, and if they're like, no, I want to drive my own, well, that's the rate. I mean, so if you were to look at what the impact of that would be under the old method, we would reimburse, assuming you adopt the new 58.5 cents a mile, the new lower rate would have been 43.5 cents a mile. Now it'll drop to 25 cents a mile under that new approach. But I think that's also logically the approach. If you drive
if that's your choice.
I drive a little TDI diesel car. Of course, right now I don't, because anyway, long story short, but that's usually what I drive, and that thing gets like 50-something miles a gallon. I can make money if I choose to drive that thing. At the new, 25 cents, a mile, I don't know if I would make money. I'd probably be more likely to drive the county car, which I usually do. I usually drive the county car if I'm going to do county business. But the other advantage of driving a county car is you're not in a weird gray area when it comes to car insurance. If you get in a wreck, you're driving your own vehicle, yet you're on county business, there's a large chance that your insurance company, if they want to be a jerk, could say, no, you're not covered. And the county insurance is not going to cover you in your own personal car. So the best thing for employees to do is use a pooled vehicle. And if we have current new vehicles that are 1 year, 2 years old under the new program, really that's going to be the best option for the employee. But anyways, I don't know what you guys want to do. So I threw out a lot of stuff. We need to adopt a per diem rate. It hasn't changed because the state hasn't updated theirs yet. If you want to go ahead and give me the authority now to just update it when it changes, or you can leave it the same, or you can pick your own rate. This is just the exercise we go through every year at this time.
I think that sounds good to me.
Do you want to just
go with this? And
do you
then
want to go with
update it?
this and then update it?
Authorize
Update it when that
later.
comes
Authorize
in.
it.
Do you want to me to bring it back, or you want to give me and I'll just tell you what it is when it changes.
Just
and
tell us what it
if
is.
you guys have a problem with it, you can always just say, no, we don't want to do that. So
Yeah.
On the mileage thing, my thoughts are, and I never thought about the insurance thing before. That's interesting. You
Yeah.
brought that up. I've never even considered that. But it seems like if we have this fleet of cars that we've purchased, even I mean, it seems like we ought to, even at the 25% per mile, we ought to encourage use of those because we're paying insurance, depreciation. It's costing us money for that fleet of vehicles. I would just hope that we encourage, county employees to, if they have to drive clear to Parowan to get a car and drive back to Cedar, that doesn't make a lot of sense, right?
Right.
But if you're in Cedar and you have an opportunity to drive your car to the parking garage, pick up a pooled car and take it, that would be my choice is to highly encourage that with our county employees.
well, and you just brought something up. So, and we need to look at this. And talking a little bit with Jen and with Wade with a fleet, we need to define what available means. If I'm in Cedar City, if that's where I live, and I'm based out of Parowan, but I need to head south, right? If there's not a pooled vehicle available in the city that you live in, I think that what we ought to do is say that means there's not a vehicle available. It would be dumb to make them drive,
to Parowan.
25 minutes. By the time you go in and get a key and do a thing, you're adding an hour. If you say, well, that
What's the
vehicle
value
is
of their
what's
time?
available. Yes, and time is money. So I think what we ought to define what available means, and that means that there's a vehicle available in the city where you reside or where you're based out of or something like that.
And I think it's also important to note that part of the strategy that you developed and you and Wade will implement is that the staging of vehicles is as important as anything.
Yeah.
And
If there's always vehicles not available in a place, we can officially reassign a vehicle. And I think we'll have more vehicles available than needed. And if we don't, and if we're constantly short, then we add a vehicle to the fleet in that location, and that's just active management.
That makes sense. Yeah,
and there's been, and rightly so, we've had times where we've had vehicles that were a little scary. Some of the vehicles that HR have driven, we have vehicles with 200,000 miles. It's like, is that thing going to make it down the road? and I understand an
Was it mostly
employee
stops? Yeah.
And if you're not, that you want to have something and you're like, I'm not taking that thing to Salt Lake. But if we have reliable vehicles, they're a year or two old, and that's it, and they're good, then that's a good vehicle. The county has invested. We've made that resource available. Then we should prioritize the use of it. The other reason why we say if you choose not to, you need your supervisor's permission, because when these mileage reimbursements that are made to the employee actually come out of that department's budget, it comes out of their travel and training budget. That they have to write a check, and that can blow up a department's travel and training budget if they have too much of this mileage reimbursement going on. So that's another reason why we wanted to have that double check there. So
I think another important part is, when you talk about the departments, it needs to be the department head, the manager of that department needs to manage their employees' use of that fleet as well. That responsibility needs to be on the department head to manage that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think one of the advantages of the fleet generally is that you're not going to necessarily have as much tribalism, if that's the right word, when it comes to vehicles.
Yeah.
We'll have a pool, and then I've had multiple times with the little fleet that I used to manage before this policy. People say, "Oh, is there a vehicle available?" And I'm like, "Not in the fleet that I manage. I can see 6 more cars in the parking lot, but they're not my cars."
Yeah.
And that's going to make a huge difference to our fleet, with our fleet.
And just to update everybody a little bit real quick, thank you, supply chain problems. We've been waiting for the new vehicles to come that we have ordered. We do have 2 of the Camrys that came, which we have one here and we have one in Cedar. Wade is working. I've been working a lot with Wade, and he's just been working nonstop. But we're going to have the key lock boxes. He's got the scheduling app up on the website, and we're just kind of working through to get that going. Hopefully we'll get a bunch of vehicles in January, but we're moving forward with it. Hopefully the employees will be patient with us. Here at the courthouse, we're going to take the assessor's vehicles and we're going to roll those into the pooled vehicles. So we'll have quite a pool here. We'll have vehicles staged at the Justice Court, in the parking garage there by Cedar City. We'll have some staged there at the tourism building. And then, of course, many of the large departments all have department assigned vehicles. The attorneys have their own vehicles that are dedicated to them, and they still will.
Mm-hmm.
Sheriff, building inspection, those that are driving all day, every day, pretty much have their own vehicles. But we're just looking to bring the county forward and make it make sense, not only for the use of the employees, but also be more responsible on the finance side. This is a huge step forward. We're going to save a lot of money, and I'm excited about it. So, anyways,
Great. Call for a motion.
Okay. Dan, if I get this messed up, help me through it. To move for approval the update of the 2022 per diem and mileage rates. Number one, addressing travel per diem rate. We're going to leave that rate the same as it is, pending an update by the state of Utah on that rate, at which time we'll authorize a move to that rate. As far as mileage goes, recognize a rate of 58.5 cents a mile as per the state. In the event that a vehicle is that a fleet vehicle is not available and a personal vehicle is to be used to be driven on county business, that reimbursement rate will be 25 cents per mile. Correct?
Unless there's not one. Well,
so I would say when there is one available and you choose to use your person.
Yeah, okay, that's, yes. See, I knew I'd
The
get
rate-
something backwards.
the rate's different.
Yeah.
When
Yes, when there's if a fleet vehicle is not available, the reimbursement rate would be 58.5 cents per mile. If a fleet vehicle is available and the employee determines to use their own vehicle, that reimbursement rate would be 25 cents per mile. Did that cover all of it?
Yeah.
Make the note of when the vehicle is available.
Yes.
Motion, or would that be updated in policy and written?
We do have the policy. Really, all we're doing is tweaking the rates. We do have the policy that says when it's.
Is the policy updated to say, well,
You could memorialize that just in the minutes by saying, if there's a vehicle available in the city you reside.
Oh yeah,
I'll just add that to.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Add that to the
and
motion.
I'll talk with Jen. We're going to tighten up the policy, and that way, all you guys have to do is tweak the numbers.
Oh,
it is great.
Oh, there you go. That's right.
Jen has got it covered.
Maybe add that we strongly recommend we use, and because of this liability thing, that's an interesting thing I've never known.
Yeah.
And so,
insurance companies are.
Oh yeah, because of
They're
liability
awesome.
issues as well. We strongly
We love
encourage them to use the
Love
fleet.
them. So we would also strongly encourage employees that travel on county business to use the county fleet and not use their own personal vehicle. Also, a definition, a loose definition for now of when a county vehicle is available is that a fleet vehicle is available in the city in which the employee dwells or is going to leave from.
Yeah.
To head to a destination.
Perfect.
Got that, John?
Ooh, wow. Can we get a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Dan, just one question. So how many vehicles will we have in our pool over here in Parowan?
I'm not sure the exact number. I think it's 7.
Okay. So
To start with.
So I was just
58.
thinking about something up to Trailside. They've got these inexpensive canopies for parking cars under.
Yeah.
Have you seen those?
No, but I like the concept here.
But I'm thinking that we ought to look into that to provide some shade to park these cars under. The heat just beats those cars to death. And maybe
It's hard on the
maybe we
rubber,
look-
the plastics, not to
Right.
mention it keep the snow and the frost. And
even though we're turning them over every 2 years, it's going to add. We're going to get more out of that vehicle if we take, if we
Yeah, there'll be
protect them
value
better.
in that.
I think we ought to look in, and I'll check into that. Have you seen those up to trail site? They're just a simple structure. I don't know how much they cost, but I'll look into that. But it might be good to get something like that to where we can have them covered.
I think it's a great idea.
Here in Parowan.
Such a big investment.
Yeah.
I mean, millions of
the
dollars.
The parking garage is a great place for.
Parking garage in Cedar serves that purpose. We ought to consider maybe the same at the tourism building where we park
Yeah.
a lot of cars there.
Yep.
Well, and another conceptual part of what Dan had originally proposed to a mostly different commission was you may be able to leverage more efficiencies and actually have fewer vehicles as you go when as you understand usage better. And like you say, he's mentioned this several times, but they're going to analyze the actual cost, and that will float a little as they run those numbers. But that might also be the number of vehicles.
And the challenge is, of course, seasonality. Different times of the season, the assessors are really busy, like ants. And then there's any time that there's a UAC conference, then you have,
everybody going.
How do you support
most of the
peak
department
demand?
heads,
Right.
plus sometimes deputies, and so we're always going to have some times when we don't have enough cars, but you want to optimize that. You want to find the optimal number. So.
John will probably want to park his Corvette up there all the time.
That's right.
I like the idea
You've
of
seen
having
what
a
John
Corvette.
drives.
I know what I drive.
It's awesome.
Yeah, what is that? A Cooper.
Oh, no. I drive a 96 Toyota Avalon that was given to me
Gifted to
by
him.
my brother-in-law.
Nice.
It's the one that is driving about 65, and you have to swerve to not hit it on the
I
freeway.
am a road hazard.
So we'll move on to number 9.
Yes, please.
So have we got Richard here, or I don't see him here?
Let me see if I've got any message about that. Okay, no word from him.
Okay.
He had also not shown the last time.
Yeah, let's
Maybe
go.
what we'll do, if you're okay with that, Commissioner, is not put it back unless we've got a bit more of a commitment from him to be here.
Could we?
Yeah.
This is the second time this has been on the agenda, and with the wording on the agenda, can we have the sheriff come up and talk about this?
I think
about
it's
the issue
very
and-
appropriate.
and kind of put this to bed for the public, so they
Yes.
know that
'Cause
we don't abuse our animals.
The wording is.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Doesn't look good.
Sheriff Kent Carpenter. I really don't have any idea what his complaint or issue is. I looked up his name's file, and he was listed as a complaint on a animal problem involving his neighbor, where he alleged that the neighbor had several animals that were being mistreated. Deputy Peterson responded to that particular call. Conducted an investigation. All the animals were in good health except for 3 horses. Deputy Peterson issued a citation to the property owner, and it's now in the jurisdiction of the court. If there's still problems, then it's up to the neighbors to call dispatch, and deputies will be happy to go out and deal with any further problems. If anything else, I have no idea what it would be.
So the way I read it made it sound like, because we were talking about the animal shelter, and it just made it sound like
we were
being
abusing
accused
them.
of animal abuse. I just wanted to get that on
There's-
the record.
Right, and there's
it's a private.
It's not.
civil
It's
matter.
a private.
Well, as far as I know, I have no idea what his allegations are. I can tell you that we have a part-time employee, Carrie, that is a very compassionate person and does a fantastic job of taking care of the animals out at the animal shelter. We're in full compliance with Humane Society's requirements, and those animals are very well cared for and adopted out if they're not claimed by the owners. Our shelter is an no-kill shelter, and it's very well run.
Okay.
So
Thanks for
Thanks for
clarifying that.
Thank you.
that, Sheriff. We'll go to number 10. Discussion and possible approval to financially participate in a multi-county big chamber of commerce. Said participation shall be subject to an annual review.
So I brought this up last time. simply for we were trying to figure out what the best way to maybe introduce it with the 2021 budget, even with some minimal information. That was about the only way that we could do it. Since then, we've got a little bit more information. So one of my duties as on the commission is I sit on the Chamber of Commerce board, and this has been a project. I haven't been involved in the development of this project, but I knew that it was such a thing. So basically, the proposed big Chamber of Commerce. So right now, we have the Cedar City Iron County Chamber of Commerce. Basically covers businesses in Cedar City. Parowan has its own Chamber of Commerce that's quite active and does a great job. Some of the outlying areas, Bryan Head has always struggled to maintain a chamber. And then there's other areas in the county with businesses, Canaryville and the West Desert, that aren't represented by any kind of a Chamber of Commerce due to their outlying area, and there's just not very many businesses there. So the idea behind this was to develop a chamber that would be able to provide training and services to those outlying areas of Iron County and the businesses that don't fall within the realm of an organized chamber. As that discussion progressed, they believe that there's value in also offering that same service to outlying regions of southern Utah in Garfield and Beaver County. To bring them together and help them develop their businesses, provide training and networking in order to help them grow in their economic development. It's not a plan to bring more business. It's not necessarily an economic development. Let's bring in more business, more employees, things like that. It's to support the current businesses, to help them be successful so that they can grow and become standalone businesses. The proposal is for $5,000. It's basically startup money to get that chamber into operation. The estimate is that it may be a 5-year ask until that chamber stands alone on its feet and is completely privately managed. The hope is that they can get it moving and that it's not going to be a 5-year commitment. That they can get it up and running much quicker than that. So their ask to us is $5,000 committed to that organization, basically for startup money. Beaver County and Garfield County has already their commissions have already approved a similar amount to go into that. Also, there'll be another $5,000 that comes from tourism and from Maria. So Iron County's total contribution would be $10,000, $5,000 from the commission, $5,000 from Maria. And built into that would be an annual review where Chris from the Chamber of Commerce will come in and speak to us, give us an update, to make sure that is still something that's worthy of taxpayer money to support.
I think that's going to be very helpful, and that was kind of my ask when I talked to Chris, was that if you'll come and update us how that process is going, and if we need to fund it going forward, we'll do that year to year.
Right.
And I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, and that was when I talked to him. I wanted to put that aspect into the initial approval as well, so that was something on the record from the very beginning, that it was a year to year, an annual review. It wasn't an automatic budget item.
Yeah, I think
moving
that's
forward.
Important for us to see that yearly. So
You know, and the thing that was the most, I think the thing that's most beneficial to Iron County is we do have a couple of businesses in Canaryville. We do have some businesses in the west. Brian Head has tried to maintain a chamber of commerce for years, and it's just been very difficult. They haven't been able to do that.
It's hard for small towns.
It is.
It is.
And so with this, I really think that this is going to provide that service for the more outlying areas of Iron County. You know, the fact that they feel that they can reach out to other counties is great, and I wouldn't be in support if the other counties weren't providing, you know, the financial backing, you know, for them to move into those other counties as well. But I think it's important because it does represent quite a few businesses in unincorporated Iron County.
Yeah.
Gives them the potential.
Yeah, comments?
Yes, thank you. My name is Volney Morin, and I'm standing before you now wearing two hats, as a private citizen and also as the chairman of the Republican Party for Iron County. One of our party platforms is that government should be limited. And as I've been listening to today, as well as the last meeting, I have not heard the word proposed budget mentioned even once. I have no idea how the $10,000 that this Super Chamber of Commerce is asking for is proposed to be spent. And according to what Commissioner Blake said today, it's not designed to increase our tax revenues through supporting businesses. I wonder if the increase in the scope of the county government's participation in a body that, I'm not sure if this is quasi-private government partnership or if it's a private partnership or private enterprise, what the benefit is to the taxpayers of Iron County. And my fear is that, like many government programs, it starts off small and sounds reasonable, and the next thing you know, 5 years down the road, we're allocating much more money to support a bureaucracy that may be better served by volunteers. I don't see why businesses in Canaryville can't belong to the Cedar City Chamber of Commerce and make the drive from Canaryville to Cedar, which is not any more than the drive from Cedar to Parowan, or Rotary clubs or any other philanthropic or eleemosynary organization could not fulfill just as easily. Thank you for your consideration.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a comment on that. When I was serving on the Cedar City Council for 8 years, when I first started on the council, we supported the chamber. We gave quite a donation to them each year in our budget. And it got to the point where I felt like it was time to wean the chamber off of the support of Cedar City, and we quit funding them. The example I used there was I'd been in business then probably 28 years, and I just brought up the point that I think to make up the difference for what we were going to cut out of our budget to give to the chamber was about going out and recruiting 8 new businesses to join the chamber. And I had been in business for 28 years, and they never once had ever come knocked on my door and asked me to join the chamber. I joined when I became a city council, maybe because I wanted to support the Chamber of Commerce. I thought they were important, but we did cease funding that, and they've done fine. They've gone out and got more support from local businesses. When I first heard this proposal, I was honestly opposed to it. But as I talked to Chris McCormick, and I agree with Volney and that was my very question, was when you hear the word big chamber, well, is this just another big bureaucratic government program that's going to get out of control? Initially, this was supposed to be a 5-year commitment, each year $5,000 or $10,000, $5 from the county, $5 from tourism. And I talked to Chris as well and said I can't support that. I would maybe consider doing 5 each year, or a year, and then have a report to see if the actual businesses are taking ownership and shifting that, maybe some seed money to get them started and help them initially. But as we review that year to year, if we don't see the businesses
stepping up,
stepping up and taking charge and taking the load of that finance, I don't know that I would support, continue that support or funding. So,
well, and I want to address. So this isn't necessarily to recruit new businesses into the area, but it is an effort to recruit current businesses into the chamber, which is a support role to help that business grow. With the growth of the business and stabilization of the business, that's where we see the tax benefit. It's not the chamber's job to go out and recruit. That's what we have economic development for. And we have Danny Stewart's office that does that, recruits new businesses into the area. This is to support existing businesses and to try and bring existing businesses into that chamber where they can get that support to grow. I think it's a benefit. I think we'll see a tax benefit from it. But this needs to be a temporary thing. It's not anything that needs to be. The last thing we need to do is to get involved in and manipulate private business. If we can give the chamber a leg up to try and support local business more, but this cannot be an ongoing funding.
Yeah. Come ahead, Bill.
My name's Bill Pressgrove. I represent myself as a citizen of the county. My question is cui bono? Who benefits by this? Does all of the citizens of this county benefit by doing this? Because the citizens of the county are the ones that are footing the bill. No matter how small it is, that we are footing the bill. So cui bono? Who's going to benefit? You're saying it'll raise taxes. Well, gee, the county then benefits, but how do the citizens benefit? If the Chamber of Commerce is a private entity that is supposed to work with the businesses, that's fine, because they can do that. But when you get the county started to get involved, you're putting our tax dollars into private organization for a benefit to the county of more taxes, but the citizens, what benefit do they have? Thank you.
Dan?
And just to address one of the things that Volney brought up, and
could you state your name,
taking please? Words out of my mouth as well, as Dan Jessen, Iron County Auditor. When we originally discussed this was the first meeting of December, and what we were talking about was potentially adding it in that budget adjustment to last year's budget, which we decided not to do. And to Volney's point, to add it to this year's budget, we'll need to do during a time when we have the budget open. So even if you guys say, yes, let's support this, we still need to actually officially amend the budget and put it in there. I would suggest we put it in our economic development department, if you will. We wouldn't be able to cut a check until we had a chance to adjust the budget mid-year. But you can express support and say this is our plan. Officially, there is zero budget, so you couldn't say yep and tell me to go pay it, because I don't have anything to pay it from. So, anyways, just wanted to clarify.
Thank you for that, Dan.
Right. So Commissioner Blake, how do you see this moving forward? Or is Chris McCormick going to head this up? Is he going to grab businesses from Beaver, Garfield, Canairville, Bryan Head, and form a committee?
So there's going to be, the way that I understand it, is there's going to be a board that oversees the big chamber, aside from the board of the Cedar City Chamber of Commerce. I believe that they have that lined out. I don't have that in front of me. I don't have it. I had it in an email. I've cleaned that out. Basically, there's a board that will oversee that. I think it was recommended that I sit on that board, but representatives from both Beaver and Garfield County. I don't know if that's a commissioner or I don't remember exactly who they had lined out on that board, but it was a separate board to oversee those activities and make sure that it was being done efficiently and that it was done according to plan. So there is a recommended board to oversee that chamber moving forward.
Okay, oh, here comes Volney again.
I just have a follow-up question. Volney Moran again. I'm not really quite sure how chambers work. I've never been a member of the Chamber of Commerce, but I do know from my involvement in local politics and community in Arizona that the executive director of the chamber received a full-time salary. And I'm wondering, is this super chamber going to have an executive director that is paid? Are the members of the board of directors of this super chamber going to receive a monthly allowance for their time in the form of compensation? Thank you.
The short answer is no.
Isn't it? Volunteer.
Yeah, the Cedar City Chamber does have an executive director that's paid, and none of that comes from public monies. Chris McCormick is also going to oversee this as part of his responsibility that he currently has as the chamber director. There's no more compensation, and the board will not be compensated. It's a volunteer board. And Chris and his office staff basically taking this on. I believe they're going to dedicate. I think they're going to dedicate 1 to 2 days a month to be on the road to different sites. I don't know exactly how that's going to work out, but there's going to be a dedicated time allotment to each of these other entities moving forward. But there isn't any additional compensation.
Well, I would say we'll go through this year and tell him that he's under top scrutiny, and we'll see how it goes. But
well, and the good thing about the way the chamber board as it sits, I sit on that board as a representative of Iron County. Tyler Melling from the Cedar City Council also sits on that board. We have a real reasonable board that is really active in the finances and the way that the money is spent. We've got a couple of different CPAs that sit on that board. It's a very active board, and the monies are highly scrutinized, even though they're not necessarily tax dollars. It's really a well-run organization.
Southwest Tech is going to be involved with training in that, didn't you?
Yeah. Yes. They'll also be coordinating with the small business, whatever it's Craig Isom and the Small Business Center.
Oh yeah.
The new Innovation Center.
Women's business.
Women in business. Those entities will all be incorporated into that training and the services that are provided through this. Businesses. Yes. So it's not going to be Chris McCormick running around the countryside providing training.
Yeah, a lot more people involved.
Yeah, it's a lot more involved. It's really. They're really trying to be comprehensive in helping our local businesses develop to their potential.
To Bill's question, don't we, I mean, the better a business does, the more cut of the sales tax we get as a county, correct? So we do receive a return on investment if a business does better. So to that,
yes.
I mean, in my business, and I don't know, in my cabinet business, for 34 years, we've done a lot of work out of state and in Nevada, and brought dollars from one state into our state. I don't know what kind of benefit the county gets. I mean, there's some sales tax, but we pay some of our sales tax to Nevada. So I don't know how that would work, but I've struggled with this one. I have to be honest. At first, it was a solid no. Then I talked to Chris and this is a tough one for me, honestly. I think I could support it for 1 year. I don't know that I can support it much more than that, just to give them some seed money to get started and get the paperwork and all that stuff going. When they first said 5 years without review, I think that was the initial thing, and there's no way I'd support that. But I will make a motion to support them with a $5,000 contribution from the county, and Maria would be the separate, another $5,000. But I don't know that I could really support this more than about a year, and so I guess we just have to review it really. If we don't see the businesses step up, go out and recruit more, have a minimal fee that they can raise to carry this forward, I can't see myself really supporting it again unless we see some real active involvement in these other businesses outside of Cedar City's chamber. So that's my motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move on to 11. Discussion and possible approval of update Iron County precinct map. And this is John Whitaker, and this should be fun.
Okay, so I've kind of spoken to the commissioners a little bit already about this. This is, we are mandated to maintain the precincts. Certain rules apply. There was the census happened last year, and so it was a really good time to do this. This map on the screen represents, each dot represents a registered voter or registered voters. And this is kind of what we had before. Uh-oh. I'm seeing the swirly thing of death. Well, while the computer's thinking, I will talk. Basically, we went through the process. We've been subject to the redistricting process that the state legislature has done. They changed us so that we have House 70 and 71 instead of 71 and 72. And instead of one school board, we have two school board boundaries. And that thing is just stuck. Okay. What we have, and I've reviewed this with individuals in the community. We've had a widget showing the map, the proposed map on the website for about a month as it's evolved. I've met with several the political parties and asked for their review. Iron County is predominantly Republican, and so a lot of the precinct things affect them more acutely. I appreciate Valdy Morin and Casey Anderson who've given feedback on this. As the maps evolved, we kind of went to this map, and as late as last week, we kind of got this map. This is the map now that I am presenting to the commissioners. And I'll just go through a few of the things that are different. If we start, I wonder how this is going to go. You know, I'm gonna kill some stuff. Maybe get a little less.
Thinking too much, huh?
Yeah, it's like me. It's not thinking enough. Okay. So this orange line here, and if you want to just follow the cursor, that is the new boundary between House 70 and 71. And then we have this yellow boundary here, which is the boundary between State School Board 14 and State School Board 15. And we had kind of prepared for changes, and these kind of threw a monkey wrench into what we had done, so we had to kind of start over. So Brian Head now encompasses this this green, and there's kind of a very subtle difference there between the Bryan Head green and the Summit green, but it happens up on top of the mountain. Bryan Head, if you'll notice, comes all the way over to the, I can't think of the name of the road now.
14?
No, it's south from there. It's up on top. The Canara Mountain Road and the Kolob Road over here. Okay. And it comes down to 14. I'm going to zoom in here. So this is Right-Hand Canyon, where the cursor is, and that's Milts.
Oh, so we did get those houses up the canyon into, that's good. That was
Oh,
going
that
to be
is
my
good.
question.
Yeah.
So they don't have to
Really
drive
good.
clear around to.
Yeah.
go to
So to explain what Commissioner Cousins is talking about, so Milts is about where my cursor is. This is where that new RV park is, and there were about 4 houses there. And those folks had been in the Bryan Head precinct, which meant they had to drive all the way around, even though if they had a helicopter, they could get there in like 2 minutes. But so those are now in Cedar City 5. Also notably in Cedar City 5 is Cedar Highlands. One of the nuances of precincts generally is we have precincts that sometimes come inside and outside of a municipality. So Cedar City 5, if I zoom in here, so this area out here is a sub-precinct, right? It's not part of an unincorporated area, whereas this in the hash is. So we have 5-1 and 5-2, 2 being the unincorporated area. This school board boundary has caused us to have to make some changes to Canaraville and Cedar City 5, and we brought Cedar City 5 all the way to that boundary and Canaraville all the way up, and this is about as exciting as watching paint dry, but these are kind of important distinctions that we made here. With the growth that has happened and continues to happen, this Cedar Valley is a new precinct. It is a sub-2 precinct for the most part. It used to be Cedar City 25 as a sub-precinct. Here is the challenge. In their wisdom, the folks at the redistricting followed the annexation line, but not right there or not right there, which means we have islands of incorporated in this mostly unincorporated precinct, but we couldn't figure out a better way to do it. We have similar problems here in Three Peaks. I have been told by the UGRC and Paul Ray and those folks that they are willing and able to do some cleanup, and that might include actually properly following this annexation boundary. Another concern for the Three Peaks is right here, and I'm zooming way in now, but there's an annexation happening right there, and that will be another island of incorporated in this mostly unincorporated precinct. This big red one is Mid-Valley. It's mostly unchanged. We're going to talk about how it was affected a little bit by Enoch. This number here represents the number of registered voters. And by law, we have to keep it under 1250. But there's kind of a sweet spot for the number of registered voters to have an effective caucus night. And 600 is pretty close to that number. Now, because of the slowness of this computer, I'm not going to go back and forth because I've closed them. But this precinct is huge by area. And this is probably one of my biggest concerns about where we are at the behest of the Republican Party. And talking about it, there was a Newcastle precinct and a Modena precinct, which are now all part of the Burrell precinct. So physically it's giant, but it's actually got a really good number of registered voters, that 597. So I'm okay with it. I moved forward with it, but I have been concerned about it.
Include Irontown?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Irontown, let's see. Part of the problem with Irontown is the fact that this is the bright orange line is that House district. And so we couldn't, Irontown is right here, and we could not violate that. We were subject to that. That's also some of the weirdness that happened here because of the way, I mean, I don't know what possessed them to draw that line like that. But for example, right here, this big Hernia.
Who lives there?
No one. It's this right here is the Bumblebee Road. So this is Vandenberg Road as it comes, and then it becomes Bumblebee. This is where the road department has done all that work and improved the road.
Yep.
For whatever reason, they decided not to follow that road right there, and it cuts a guy's parcel in half. I mean,
State did that?
Yeah. So, on the long list of corrections that we've sent them, that's one of them. We want them to just follow the road right there. There's no voters right there.
There's some turkeys right there.
There are some turkeys. I'm going to say hernia because, and until I can think of a more offensive word, I'm going to use hernia. It's great. Thank you. We're back into playing the thesaurus game again. Okay. All right.
Who said that?
It was Richard.
Was it the engineer?
I know, right?
I knew.
Yes.
Duly noted. I appreciated it.
Okay.
So
Yes.
the A's and the B's,
Ones and twos.
Those will be precincts and caucus by themselves.
No.
No.
So they caucus together, and this is a good and important distinction. So, for example, in Cedar City 20, this had been one of our single biggest precinct, and so now we've cut it down here. I'll show a few more things that we've done, but the little red crosshatch area where my cursor is, that's incorporated. That's annexed Cedar City.
Cedar City.
And so the real difference between the sub 1 and sub 2 precincts happen on odd years when there's a municipal election. In fact, there was so much excitement over the mayor race in Cedar this year. We had a lot of angry phone calls because they're like, you screwed up our ballot. The mayor race isn't on here. It's like, well, you don't get to vote on the mayor. Well, what do you mean? I live in Cedar City. My mailbox says Cedar City. You're not part of annexed Cedar City. So that's the distinction. They caucus together on caucus night, but they vote separately on the municipal years because, and this year there happened to be a school board one. Otherwise, they wouldn't get any ballot in those odd years, right? In the even years,
that makes sense.
They vote. They vote and are reported on as an individual voting block. Right. So Cedar 20 will include the annexed portion, but also the unannexed portion. So this is another little bit of ugliness. This is the top end of our 5700 South Belt route. Part of that's not the committee's fault. That's the weirdness of the Cedar City annexation line, but they kind of went that way. All right. So and this map isn't ideal for this. I'm going to hopefully not crash the machine. Come on. Okay. Well, okay. Oh, here we go. So he's made some breakouts for me, and Kendall's been fantastic. I've just been super grateful for Kendall. In the midst of all the CAFO stuff, he's been doing this for me. He's had his plate full. So Cedar City 20 is the red part here, right? And we actually created 2 new precincts as well that were mainly unincorporated, the Westview precinct, and now the Cross Hollow precinct. This actually became a bit of an issue because of the growth down in the Eagle Ridge at South Mountain area down here south of Walmart. We had to make some pretty significant changes here to kind of capture the fact that this neighborhood didn't exist the last time these were put together. And so we kind of squared that corner. And then Cedar City 18, this is mostly just cedar trees through here. And then as we go, this is Westview Drive, the College Farm. So this is like Hidden Hills and some of those new subdivisions, Temple View over here that kind of go up to the top of the mountain along Westview. So that is now Cedar City 18. So for example, one of the weirdness that's not anybody's fault, but there's this island of unincorporated that has 0 voters in it, and this is like the corner of Lund Highway and 56, and so there's this island with no registered voters.
Is that Cross Hollow Road?
This is Cross Hollow right here.
Okay, and then where's Cove Drive?
Cove is
that in 30 now?
Yes.
So Cove is right.
Yeah. So, and in fact, this is now we're getting closer to Paul's house. So Cedar 18 includes this bit here. This is, we generally try to follow parcel lines or roads if we can,
Isn't it?
but this is, pardon?
A little bit of the cove.
Yes.
Is in there.
Yeah.
Comes up over the hill.
Yeah.
Where's Cove Drive?
So Cove Drive is this one right here. Okay. Oh, and he sent me more maps while the meeting was going. I wonder if I've got better views of that. So yeah, so this is up along kind of the temple. We actually ended up making some significant changes because there weren't very many voters there. And so we actually, that follows the temple there and then this ridge line. And so Cedar City 30 was now, that was 18, that was your precinct. And now Cedar City 30 mainly just has the Cove in it, whereas Cedar 17 now mainly just has the east side of Lay Hill. Also significantly, and again, there's just a ton of changes, and I'm sorry this is about as exciting as watching paint dry, but Cedar 22 was split here, and this is 746 South. That's Cody Drive, right? And that's the one that goes down the hill over. But there were enough voters that those are actually really nice sized precincts now, made up mainly of folks who live on Lay Hill. Cedar 15 covers parts south. And then Cedar 24, those colors are really close together, aren't they? In downtown, closer to my neck of the woods, Cedar 10, or Cedar 13, let's see. Cedar 10 took in 11 and 12 and goes all the way now to Main Street. And that actually tracks fairly well because of the change with the university there. 14 and 13 were affected a lot. Cedar 4 was reduced and split so that we added Cedar 28. So you can visualize this. This is Greens Lake Drive here, and then the road up to the sea, up to Cedar Highlands, right? So that's south of Greens Lake Drive is still part of Cedar City 5, but north of there is this new Cedar City 28, and we actually followed this section line over and then this road here. So Cedar City 3 was left a little big. We had made some steps to reduce it, but again, thanks to the folks in the Republican Party who noted we had brought it over to 100 East, and they felt like that would be confusing, and I'm pretty sure they were right. Cedar City, oh, those are close together too. 27 and 6, I can't even see the difference. I think it was split at 900 North. We also changed 7, 8, and 9 that used to run east and west. Now they run north and south.
So you figured out a good way to split that, make it.
Yeah, we had some discussion, Commissioner Cousins and I, and we actually ended up going down 400 and then Coal Creek Road, and so went the wrong way. So these folks now have a similar. So these are like the trailer parks by the cemetery, Heritage Park subdivision, Ironwood, and then the eastern part of the blocks in town, whereas 8 now encompasses pretty much Burger Alley out west and then parts north. Cedar 29 was new. It was a split from Cedar 6 that was gigantic, and then Cedar 21 was unchanged. We split Cedar City 1 down Wedgewood Drive, east and west. Okay, and so they're kind of long and skinny, but they're really good sized. And I mean, I lived in these neighborhoods years ago, and that Wedgewood really is a good geographical dividing line, I felt. And so Cedar 16 got significantly smaller. It had been, Three Peaks is now what most of 16 was. There's an island here of unincorporated. There's nothing we can do about that. This is the new annexation, that we're going to send to UGRC. Okay, now Enoch. Enoch 1 actually came up here to Old Enoch Road and Stagecoach, and then through the Trails West subdivisions that way. And then this is the south side of Garden Park subdivision, and then along Minersville Highway and out west, all the way out to Bulldog, close to Brandon's house. That's 3600 North. Brandon, who was here, I say that like everybody knows what I'm talking about. Sorry.
Hunter.
Yeah, Brandon Hunter, who, yes. I won't point exactly to where his house is, but that's in that area. And there aren't a lot of homes there. There's a new subdivision here. But what that did was Enoch 1 is now right-sized. It was very small and kind of isolated. That also allowed us to square off Enoch 3 with some unincorporated and a few unincorporated. So this is Driftwood Lane as it approaches Mid-Valley Road. Does that make sense? And there's a few homes there. Enoch 6 is a new precinct. We have 2 new precincts. Enoch 5 was this small one, which is basically the west end of Trails West subdivisions. The hub is like right there, and then Garden Park. Enoch 6 covers parts north of Mid-Valley Road, mostly in the west part, and it goes out to the annexation declaration line, and that defines the parts that are in and out of the city. So that's about 628 there. And a late change that we made last week was to bring Enoch 6 all the way to Old Enoch Road here. And then Enoch 4 now is an area of significant growth, and that's like the ridge and Saddleback views right there. Okay. So, almost done.
I'm not going because of that.
Okay. No, it's boring.
I think it's very interesting.
Or riveting, I don't know. But so Parowan, we agonized over Parowan for a while. So Parowan South is this red, and it's kind of non-contiguous, or it's not non-contiguous, but it's weird because it's kind of pinched off there. But there's almost no one that lives in this Parowan South. There's a few people up left hand that have residences. But what we did do is we created, I wonder if I have a breakout map. I do.
Did you try to gerrymander Alma Adams into something? Just kidding. There's a lot of lines there.
A lot of lines.
Yeah. So first of all,
one
no.
must have been challenging.
And Alma lives out in Parowan Valley.
I know.
There was some discussion one time about Alma and a road that the oil ended at a strategic, and it was just the way where they ran out. But this was the annexation line for Parowan, and it just goes up the canyon, and it presents a logistical problem when trying to do precincts. Historically, Parowan has been split north and south, and what had happened was they were just way too big. And so what we've done is added a Parowan East. And in the sense of trying to maintain that simplicity, you've got north and south and east. And of course, there's an exception, and that is along Highway 91. Those are going to be west of Main Street, but that is included in Parowan East, and mostly because of that annexation line. Paragouna changed and takes in, so you have Paragouna 1 here, because they are incorporated, right, Nicole? That's right. The most important town in Iron County, correct? Yes. Anyway, so Paragouna, now everybody knows the terminology, Paragouna 2 goes all the way up to the north and east boundaries of the county.
That's nice, so it'll take in Donna and Ralph.
Yes. Mm-hmm. They were part of Parowan Valley. And part of that, again, is because not only is this a good logistical change, but again, that house boundary, that bright line, dictated that they couldn't be the same precinct anymore. And it really worked out well because Paragouna now encompasses everything east of the freeway, Parowan Valley is west of the freeway, and then they meet along this township line with Mid-Valley and Parowan Valley. There were a lot of compromises we had to make, but a lot of things that really worked out well. I can't say enough how much Kendall, there were, when we submitted this, and I think technology is just better than it was the last time it was done, but they had 70 corrections for us to make of things, not that we had created, but that had been part of the maps before, just little lines that weren't lined up or whatever. I mean, and Kendall has done a yeoman's job of just getting all this straightened out. So I've gone through ad nauseum all these changes. Before Volney gets up and speaks, are there any questions or comments about any of this from the commissioners or anyone?
And maybe Vonley will address it, but have you started the process of allocating state and county delegates to these precincts yet, Vonley? That's probably what you're going to talk about, maybe.
We have started nothing.
Okay.
He's waiting
We
on
approve
us.
it.
The
We gotta approve it.
fertilizer will hit the air conditioner as soon as you approve this map.
It all gets.
But I did want to take, as long as I'm here, I just wanted the commissioners to know how wonderful it's been to work with John as an individual, and the support of his team. Really appreciated. I texted him this morning. We're going to have a meeting tomorrow evening at the library with our precinct leadership teams, and a follow-up meeting for those that can't make it on Saturday. And John is going to be able to provide precinct maps.
To
for
clarify,
our,
John has asked Kendall who will provide them.
well,
I'll print them off, but Kendall's going to
John's
do the
team
work. Yes.
will provide maps for our meeting tomorrow by 6. I'll be here tomorrow afternoon to pick them up, and I just wanted you to know that I really appreciate all the work that John has done. He met with us in the evening in Cedar outside of business hours, which was really appreciated because a lot of our team members worked during the day and couldn't come here.
How soon will you figure you'll have them on so that we can see what precinct that we're in?
Well, that's going to
Everyone.
be up to Richard Genk, who's our webmaster, and the precinct chairs will have their meetings tomorrow night and Saturday, and hopefully they will begin reaching out to the members of
For
their
areas.
precinct. But there's an interactive map, I think, that the state of Utah will be putting together.
Yes.
And,
So we will send them. You'll get a physical copy, but I'll also send PDFs to whomever you need.
Okay.
On just individual precincts. But one of the cool things that we've had for a few years now is a precinct lookup tool. We actually use it at our vote centers, and they're going to update that for this so that an individual can just type in an address and know what precinct they're in.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and of course, as a leadership team, we need that data available so that we can locate
On
and
the
recruit
Republican.
new precinct leaders.
Yeah, there's a lot of
And
leadership.
for the regular registered voters, they can type in and find out which precinct they need to go to on caucus night.
So this is a significant change, and it'll cause a lot of work for these guys this one time. But
Fortunately, it's only once every 10 years. So.
Yeah.
John,
Yeah.
thanks again.
yeah, thank you.
Bill Pressgrove again. I'm precinct chairman of precinct 20.
20.
Could you go over precinct 20 a little bit for me?
See where you're at?
Well, I know I'm in there because
He knows where he's at.
Yeah,
You're off Lake Road, aren't you? Yeah.
it's Lake Road.
This one here.
Yes. And so I go out to Bumblebee and down to where?
So it actually goes past Vandenberg, and
Right.
it kind of trails out through the wilderness there. It does not.
down in there, is there?
Yeah, well, this is that Harmony Mountain Ranch subdivision here,
So they're
which does not include you.
Okay, so there's nobody that lives in that little section right there that you're got your cursor.
That I know of, yeah.
Okay.
If I had I had to kill my other map, otherwise I could.
Going east,
Yes. We could probably.
just
Do you have a comment? Because I can go over this offline with you.
no. That,
Okay.
Yeah, we can go.
I've taken a lot of
My-
time.
My big question is, are we going to get a spreadsheet of all of the people that are supposedly in our precinct so that we can start notifying them?
Yeah. So part of what the party will do in that regard, and again, Iron County happens to be a place where there's a lot more Republicans than other parties, and so this is probably more critical for folks trying to run a caucus meeting in a few months, whereas some of the other ones will meet as one group in the whole county. That being said, and I'm glad you asked this question because it will help me to explain a little bit more of the process. The commissioners hopefully today will vote on this, and once the commissioners approve this, and there might be a cleanup that comes from the state, but basically in my voter rolls for Iron County, what will happen is mine won't change. Paul's will change. So for example, Paul had been in 18, right?
Yes.
And he's now going to be in, 32?
30.
30. And so what will happen is Paul's record, when the Republican Party polls it, or anybody polls it, will now say that Paul Cousins is in Cedar 30, right? Or someone, or like, who was the guy? Ralph is in Paraguna Sub 2, right? And so when they pull that list, then they'll be able to parse that list through the magic of computers and say, okay, Chair for Cedar 20, you now have these people in your precinct.
Mm-hmm.
But the process, there's a lot that happens on the back end. So the map gets passed, then the map goes up to the state, and they process it and then figure out where every voter is based on the new precincts, and then reassign those voters. And I'm 99% sure that, and if the state doesn't do it, I will, that we will send out cards for everybody saying, you're now in precinct such and such.
But will the precinct chair receive a list
And
saying?
so, yeah, and again, so what happens is the database gets updated, the database gets pulled, and then they parse it and send it to the precinct chairs, and then you'll have a precinct list that shows accurately who you have in your precincts.
Because I started a texting list of the people that were in precinct 20 for all
Precinct 20 was ginormous.
1,004.
Yes.
It's changed a lot.
Yeah,
hasn't
so
it?
Westview is
been
gone,
cut in
Cross
half.
Hollow is gone. Yes.
So now that it's been cut in half, I need to go weed out the people on my text list.
Yes, and that illustrates the challenge for the party leadership for that particular party is they're going to have to find, party or precinct chairs for Westview, for Cross Hollow.
And what about
used to be part of yours?
Okay, what about these new precincts that have no chairs and stuff? Are they supposed to get together with somebody else?
Well, that's
They're going to have to.
They're going to have to appoint
too.
people. That's part of their party bylaws. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
Thank
and there's a bunch. That's right. He doubled his salary and got 0. Okay, so any other questions or comments about this?
I think we're good.
Appreciate all the work, John. Looks
Yes,
really good.
we do. We appreciate the work. Can we ask for a motion?
I will move for approval of the updated Iron County precinct map as presented by John Whitaker.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, man. Whew. Now we get Jennifer. Can
Trying to
we
go quick. Yeah.
Yeah, can we just go 1, 2, and 3 and approve those first?
Absolutely. That was
Is that what you was wanting
gonna
to
be
do?
my
Perfect.
suggestion. So perfect. So we'll go with the Sheriff's Department first. Corey Spencer was selected from the most recent competitive recruiting and selection process to backfill the vacant full-time patrol deputy 1 beginning January 10th, 2022. Rosa Aldridge was selected from an internal recruitment for the promotion from a corrections deputy 1 to a full-time corrections corporal culinary supervisor, backfill of a retirement position beginning January 9th, 2022. And Christopher Caro was selected from the most recent competitive recruiting and selection process to backfill the vacant full-time corrections deputy 1 beginning January 9th, 2022.
Just a motion on all those.
I will move to approve in the Sheriff's Department items 1, 2, and 3 as stated by Jennifer Bradbury.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the next item on the calendar was at the request of the sheriff, so I'll have to go out in the hall and grab him. I have all the budget information if you would like to kind of ponder over that as well. So I'll turn the time over to him if I can go grab him. I know he's just right here.
Hello.
Hi.
So, what the Sheriff's Office is proposing is we'd like to be able to hire some part-time deputies that will be fully sworn, full-time officers with other law enforcement agencies here within the county. What we've done, what other agencies have done within the county is we've signed a memorandum of understanding between the two agencies, which allows that off-duty officer to use his vest and weapon and whatnot in the performance of duties for the sheriff's office. If any of that property is damaged, then the sheriff's office would reimburse the parent agency for that. So what that does is that saves us money from not having to equip them with everything on a part-time basis. So all we have to do is provide them with a uniform and a vehicle. What it does is it allows us, when we have, for example, deputies that are sick or off to training or off on vacation, rather than trying to backfill all those positions with with off-duty deputies, paying them time and a half overtime, we're able to pay a part-time deputy just straight time, which saves us an additional 50% of money. So we think that we can cut back our overtime budget considerably by hiring part-time deputies. So that's what we're proposing to the commission.
Is there a lot of interest with officers to do?
There's always been interest. I've had some officers that have expressed interest to us on this, and we already do it for the court bailiffs. We do have some part-time court bailiffs that we've had for years. So this is that we're just really expanding that to the patrol side to be able to cover some of those.
And we did this in corrections a couple years ago with good success.
Right.
Sounds really good.
Yeah.
So we think that it can be a positive win-win thing for everybody, so the deputies don't have to work as hard and get burned out as much, and a lot of the excess overtime. It's not going to create or cure all of our overtime issues, because there's still going to be overtime that we can't get away from, but it will cut back significantly, we think.
Do you think it'll also address the issue of unused vacation time when it comes to folks not being able to use their vacation that's been allotted to them? It should give them an opportunity to get a part-time guy to maybe cover a shift where it's...
I think it will definitely help. Again, I don't know that it's going to resolve all of those issues, but I think that it will help and will give more opportunity to be able to address some of those issues. So.
Awesome.
I think it sounds great. I'll call for a motion.
Okay, I'll move for approval of to authorize the part-time hire of deputies, currently full-time officers with other agencies to help in the overtime coverage and mitigate the overtime costs in patrol.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good.
And maybe I'll ask the sheriff outside of here, but I just didn't know how many we're talking. If we need to set a number or if we just need to kind of work together.
So a lot of times you just kind of have to be a little bit flexible because they're still working first and foremost for their full-time agency. So it's a little bit hit or miss depending on what their availability.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, and that's totally fine. Yes. Okay. From an overtime to salaries and wages. Yeah. And true. And just for historical reference, for the corrections side, what we ended up doing for the one that's left now, we just started him at the basic entry level rate, and we can talk about that a little bit as well, since it is just kind of a part-time status and it just gives them extra. But we'll talk that through. But I've got that figure as well, so we can kind of just work on that.
Okay.
All right. So next on the Council on Aging Department, due to the immediate need, the next two on the agenda have already received tentative approval, so I'll just present them for the record. Mary Lou Rapp and Paul Abyss were selected from the most recent competitive recruiting and selection process to backfill the 2 vacant part-time cook positions in the Cedar City Center. Mary Lou started on January 7th, 2022, and Paul started on December 28th, 2021.
Okay.
A motion?
I'll move to approve under Council on Aging items 1 and 2 as described by Jennifer.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Let me give you these here.
Now in this, the assessor.
I prefer it that way.
You want to go through all the minutes?
I think it's
All right, I'll briefly address the assessor's items before turning the time over to Karsten. In the assessor's department, at the request of Karsten Reed, the position of the personal property lead has been adapted to fit the needs in the Parowan offices. The job description has been modified to include the requirement for Teresa to become a certified general appraiser within 24 months of this new position assignment. Karsten is seeking approval for the modification to this position to include a full assessor responsibilities. And then the next few items on the agenda go hand in hand, so I'll kind of discuss them briefly. The DMV office in Parowan has typically been a full-time supervisory position, and the proposal for your consideration is to eliminate the DMV supervisor position and replace it with a part-time DMV technician, which, if approved, we'll post and hire starting this week. In the Cedar City office, DMV, Karsten would also like to increase one of the part-time positions to a full-time benefited position effective April 2022. And the reason why we say April is because we do have one part-timer that will be leaving for other employment after she graduates, I believe. And then that will just eliminate that one part-time, and then we'll just have a full-time with that remaining part-time person that's left. And she has been discussed, and she's really excited if that's approved to go that route. So I'll turn the time over to Karsten if you have any questions.
Karsten, I have a question before you get started.
Yeah,
So
Karsten
it's
Reed.
my understanding that a lot of folks from down south are driving to Cedar City to use our services for registration and that.
We get a lot of dealers. We get a lot of people that come from, well, mostly from Washington County to Iron County to use our DMV.
Do we get revenue from that to offset the cost of our?
Unfortunately, don't. All the revenue goes back, back to that county. So we don't get any benefit.
Why do they do that?
It's just the state. That's where their taxes are assessed and collected. Collected here, but sent there. So it's a little bit of a downside. It just creates a little bit of backlog in our DMV offices, and I think this will hopefully help a little bit. We're in Parowan. What we're going to do is have Riley, and Riley's cross-trained, so we've got her kind of up and going in the DMV office. So we'll still provide full-time coverage. We'll just have a part-time employee here. We'll just have Riley work kind of the 2-3 hours in the morning that the part-timer won't be there, and then have the part-timer work the rest of the day. We just kind of a bigger need in Cedar for service, so that's what we're trying to do. Basically, the net effect is that we are not going to hire another part-time person, so we'll just leave that position backfilled and opened. The changes in the assessor office are pretty necessary, statewide, R tier and above. I think every single county except for 2 have added personnel. St. George just added 5 new assessors. Growth is, we all know we're growing. Every county's growing, and there's a need to backfill the 2 positions that we have. So we're actually not growing our office. We're just backfilling the positions that haven't been filled, and hopefully that'll help us address ongoing growth issues that we're having, so we can kind of meet those needs. Next, the next commission meeting we'll have on the agenda, Riley is going to move over to personal property, so she'll be working personal property instead of just being an assistant, and so Teresa will be
with the assessor.
Yeah,
part.
yeah. So hopefully that'll kind of accommodate all of the needs that we have and help us kind of move forward, and so yeah, that's my request, and if you have any questions, let me know. We're good.
We're good. Call for a motion.
Well, so did that.
So
well, what?
Yeah.
That just with your consideration to approve the job description change, and then I can cover the 2 specific individuals as well later.
So that would be items 1, 2, and 3, maybe? Is that?
Let me look really quick.
That's what I feel like we cut with, that we did 1, 2, and 3. Do you want to do 4 and 5? Hit 4 and 5 really well, and then we can address.
Yes.
I can motion all of the assessor's office at once.
Yeah, that'd be great. So that would bring us to changing Teresa Caldwell from a full-time personal property lead to a personal property lead appraiser, effective date January 9th, 2022. And then promote LaTanya Heaton from the full-time DMV office manager to a full-time trainee appraiser, backfill of a vacant position, effective January 9th, 2022.
I would move for approval of agenda items C under the assessor 1 through 5 as stated by Jennifer and Karsten.
Second.
Very good. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Section 15 was already on the agenda for other reasons, so I thought I would kind of include it all to cover the per diem as well as for the travel policy, since it's all kind of together. So that was kind of win-win. Our policies and procedures in Section 15 have been updated to include the 2022 per diem meal payments once they're adjusted, as Dan discussed earlier. And then I've also changed the section to discuss the Sheriff's Department per diem meal payments, which will be mirroring the same as all of the other employees, so they don't have to scramble for food at the end when they are going through training. So that was changed last commission meeting, and then this will just kind of solidify that on our policy.
I have a quick question about that
absolutely.
one. Are you done with number 1? I don't want to interrupt you.
I can piggyback. I can go back on that. So go ahead.
I just had a question. Where we left the per diem rate the same pending the state.
Yes.
Have we got any officers? Have we got any post positions that are coming up that they're, with that lower rate, that there might be an issue as far as making sure that they have enough money to cover their needs?
There was back in December, but since we changed that I hope we've covered everybody. I believe we have.
Great.
So we're good there.
And if not, we can adjust, right?
Yes.
We should, right?
Currently, we do.
Okay.
And we have one starting yesterday. I think he drove yesterday that we just approved. So, and that was the correction side. So I believe he got the correct per diem rate.
Okay.
So the policy also will change the travel rate of employees who do not use a county vehicle out of the area. And on that second page after the job description, I've kind of highlighted what I've changed. And I'll read that just for the record so we can kind of discuss it, because I think it's important. You covered it a tiny bit, but important to use county vehicles now that the new fleet system is up and running and we actually have vehicles for them to use. So in the bolded yellow, Iron County vehicles are to be used when traveling for county business with the temporary or limited exception as outlined below. And so in that bolded part, as of January 2022, when a county vehicle is not available, 58.5 cents per mile reimbursement. When a county vehicle is available, and employees may choose to use their own vehicle on a temporary or limited basis at 25 cents per mile reimbursement. And I think that kind of covers, hopefully we can convince everyone to use their own, but if they do want to go to a travel that's like on a weekend and they want to use their own car and maybe have some shopping to do, then that kind of covers that. But it, now that the fleet is up and running, it should not be on a consistent basis.
Maybe you just probably need to put the 0.5, 58.5.
Yeah, I do need to update that because I didn't realize there was a 0.5 there. So I will before I put that out for everybody to see.
Okay.
So we're just going to do one?
Motion.
So I'll move to update the Section 15 travel policy to include updates to post-meal requirements and changes to reimbursement for travel expenses. And just note that if there's officers that are currently in post, that we'll take care of them. If that state's not approved yet, we'll take care of those officers, correct?
Correct.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, last on the calendar is an employee COVID update. We hate hearing that word. For nearly 2 years, Betsy and I have been kept up to date on all the recommendations and updates from the CDC, state, and local experts. We continue to ensure we give the correct information to department heads and on what steps they need to take when an employee tests positive with COVID. Currently, the recommendations we have been given from Dr. Blodgett with Southwest Public Health is to isolate for 5 days if an employee is not vaccinated, and to wear a mask for 5 days after if they're feeling up to coming back. And if an employee is vaccinated, they can still come to work with a mask for 5 days if they're not feeling symptoms. This will ensure our employees are safe, as well as be able to keep all of our county offices open to serve the public.
Can I just clarify?
Yes.
So, if they're vaccinated and asymptomatic, go over that one more time, please.
If they are vaccinated and feel up to coming to work, if they don't have symptoms and they're not, if they're feeling okay, if they're vaccinated, they can come to work as long as they wear a mask for 5 days.
This is after a positive test is.
After a positive test for vaccinated. And then if they are not vaccinated, they need to isolate in their home for 5 days after their positive test. And then if they're feeling up to coming back, to wear a mask for that other 5 days.
Thank you.
You bet. And I know that'll change tomorrow. So
that's where it is
we
now.
will keep
Daily.
up to date on that. I
Yep.
promise.
So the bigger picture then is the update is that, are we going to just say that we follow the CDC and
Correct.
Southwest Public Health policy?
Yeah, and that's kind of what we've been doing since probably about a year ago. If a department head has an employee that tests positive, they usually just call our offices and we give them what we have seen from the CDC and the state, as well as Southwest Public Health. We try really hard to make sure that everybody's safe, but also try to keep our offices open as much as we can. So, and I know with this new wave and the new variant that's out there, now we're kind of hitting another spike. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be quite a roller coaster for a while. So. We're used to it. We're going on 2 years now. So,
Yep.
yeah. So the one thing I wanted to address that was kind of important that I kind of touched on a tiny bit to the department heads a couple weeks ago is with the sick policy, COVID now will kind of count towards that 92 hours maximum that they can use within the year unless they're on FMLA status. So it's one of those things that if they test positive, they give us a note saying that they're positive, we give them the recommendation to stay out the 5 days. That will count towards their maximum amount of sick leave that they can use within the year without being on that protected status.
I think that's fair. Where the recommendations 5 days and not 2 weeks and
Right.
Yeah. That's
isolation and
Yeah. Last year it went a little bit crazy. We kind of did the tracking and we've used a ton of sick hours, but I think now that that's more in check, we should be a little bit better. And if they ever need to use FMLA, that's what our offices are for. So they need to reach out to us to get on that.
Okay.
Can we get a motion?
Yeah. I'll move for approval to adopt and follow the CDC and Southwest Utah Public Health Department recommendations when it comes to issues with employees and positive COVID tests.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Do we have any prairie dog or county board?
I think we got caught up on board stuff last meeting.
All righty.
I think our planning commissions, last time we were there, it went really good. I think we got some
we're
great
good.
board members.
Yep.
And Lane Sutherland was there, and first time.
This commission's done a great job staying on top of the boards. I visited with Commissioner Wood. Typically, at the first of the year, we'll go over, take a deep dive through the boards, just make sure there's nothing out of place. And she had
Their
asked maybe we do that
terms
next
and-
meeting,
yeah.
and so we'll do that. And one of the things I don't know if you felt like you need to make any changes, but one of the things we kind of glossed over today was commission assignments. So if there are changes you want to make there, we can certainly bring that back, or maybe just let me know
Yeah, we can-
for the next
we
meeting.
Okay.
Talk about those. Okay. I guess.
declares adjournment?
I guess I declare it closed.
Adjournment, yeah, okay.
Adjourned.
Excellent.
Good job, Marilyn. See, that wasn't so bad.